No matter how turbulent the waves were, they were all blocked by the net of sword light. No matter how sharp and cold the heavenly ice sword was, it was cut into pieces by the star sword. Tens of thousands of saber lights and sword shadows were unable to penetrate the barrier of the sword net, and they all collapsed and dissipated. After a few breaths of time, the first round of battle between the two sides ended. The result was beyond everyone's expectations. The elders and disciples of Surging Wave Palace were even more shocked as they revealed expressions of extreme shock. Ji Tianqing had single-handedly blocked the Surging Waves Palace's attack with just a super sword formation. The combined attack of 7 elders and over 1,000 disciples was actually neutralized by him alone. What kind of astonishing strength was this? What kind of terrifying methods were these? Everyone understood that even the Surging Wave Palace Lord did not possess such strength. Even the usually expressionless Surging Wave Palace Lord could not help but frown and narrow her eyes. A deep sense of shock and astonishment flashed through her eyes as she thought to herself, this lad first fought a huge battle with Heavenly Sect and killed Long Fun and the experts of Heavenly Sect. Tonight, he fought a huge battle with Sacred Fire Sect and killed Xing Wuyin and the disciples of Sacred Fire Sect. Logically speaking, no matter how strong he is, he should be severely injured and weak. But why is it that he doesn't show any signs of weakness or injury? Could it be that he hit too deeply and escaped my detection? Or, is he truly not injured and his strength has always been at his peak? The Surging Wave Palace Lord fell into silence as she hesitated and weighed her options. If it was the former, she was confident enough to rip apart Ji Tianqing's disguise and reveal his true form, causing him to die tragically on the spot. If it was the latter, she had severely misjudged Ji Tianqing's strength and condition. The consequences would be unimaginable. There was a high chance that Surging Wave Palace would follow in the footsteps of Sacred Fire Sect. The Surging Wave Palace Lord was extremely calm and cautious. She considered defeat before victory. After a short moment of consideration, she decided to continue attacking and test Ji Tianqing's strength. Kill. Her gaze regained its coldness and determination as she glared at Ji Tianqing in the night sky and hollered coldly. The 7 elders and more than 1,000 disciples tossed aside the shock and distracting thoughts in their hearts and attacked with all their might. Swoosh! 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 All sorts of divine powers and ultimate skills were used once more. Saber lights and sword shadows that blotted out the skies surged towards Ji Tianqing and the others like a flood. This time round, everyone released an even stronger combat strength with a stubborn and unyielding mentality. Everyone's spirit and will also suffered a setback and blow. The fastest mobile version of the website. Chapter 31:16. Surging Wave Palace's morale was affected after receiving such a blow. The fighting spirit of the 7 elders and disciples dropped noticeably. Their full-powered attacks were blocked and neutralized by the heaven-vanquishing sword formation. As for the attacks of Ji Tianqing and the others, the disciples of Surging Wave Palace were unable to defend against them and were killed with ease. Wasn't that the omen of defeat? At the thought of that, the disciples of Surging Wave Palace were filled with worry and anxiety. Helpless, they turned to the 7 elders and the Lord of Surging Wave Palace, hoping that they could come up with an effective countermeasure. The 7 elders felt uneasy as well. They were both furious and worried as they looked at the Lord of Surging Wave Palace. The Lord of Surging Wave Palace was still calm and composed as she sat on the ice lotus platform. She ordered expressionlessly, disciples of Surging Wave Palace, form the Surging Wave 9 Revolutions divine formation and fight the enemy together. At the same time as she gave that order, she flew high into the skies. Swoosh! The ice blue lotus platform hovered high in the skies and released 18 ice blue light pillars that flew in all directions like divine dragons. The Lord of Surging Wave Palace sat on the lotus platform and conjured a divine art with both hands that moved at lightning speed, forming a mysterious divine seal. It was clear that she had taken action personally. With herself as the core, she gathered the strength of more than 1,000 Surging Wave Palace disciples to form the Surging Wave 9 Revolutions Divine Formation to defend against the attacks of the Heaven-Vanquishing Sword Formation and Ji Tianqing. The Surging Wave 9 Revolutions Divine Formation was the sect protection formation of Surging Wave Palace, and it was also an ancestral monarch grade god formation. The offensive and destructive power of that formation was only at the superior grade monarch grade. However, its defensive power was at the level of a superior grade monarch grade. Through 2 clashes, the Lord of Surging Wave Palace had already found out the answer. She had to admit that Ji Tianqing was not faking it or putting on a strong front. He was truly uninjured and his strength was at his peak state such that no one could see through him clearly. If the disciples of Surging Wave Palace continued to attack, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. With each clash, hundreds of disciples would die in battle. Before long, Surging Wave Palace would be defeated. Therefore, the Lord of Surging Wave Palace made a prompt decision to change her strategy. She no longer allowed the disciples to attack proactively and formed a defensive formation instead. As long as she used the Surging Wave's 9-turn divine formation to block the attacks of the heaven-destroying sword formation and Ji Tianqing and the others, she would be able to stall for time. She had already sent out a communication jade slip to report the situation to Grand Prince Lien. Prince Lien had already set up many forces outside the god-burying mountain range, forming an inescapable net. As long as she could stall Ji Tianqing, the experts from the other forces would quickly arrive. At that time, they would gather the strength of many forces and experts to jointly encircle Ji Tianqing. No matter how capable Ji Tianqing was, he would still be buried here. Swish! Swish! Very quickly, the 7 elders and over 1,000 Surging Water Palace disciples changed positions. The Surging Wave Palace disciples formed 17 square formations while the 7 elders formed 1 square formation. There were a total of 18 square formations, and they were just enough to support the 18 icy blue light pillars released by the Lotus Throne. Suddenly, the foundation of the 9 rotations of blue waves was formed. With the Lord of Surging Waves at the center, he sat on a lotus platform high in the sky. 18 light pillars extended from the Lotus Throne, connecting the 18 square formations and gathering the strength of over 1,000 disciples and 7 elders. The night sky was immediately covered by a layer of icy blue divine light that covered a radius of 250 kilometers. Swish! 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 The icy blue divine light continued to condense and thicken, and its defensive power also increased explosively. In just 2 breaths, a barrier of icy blue divine light that covered a radius of 250 kilometers was successfully formed. The heaven-destroying sword formation sped up, and the 10,000 giant swords stabbed even more violently, but they were all blocked by the icy blue light barrier. The giant divine swords stabbed into the icy blue light barrier, producing crisp clanging sounds as countless fragments of divine light burst forth. However, the icy blue light barrier was unbreakable. Even though it was constantly trembling from the giant divine swords, it did not break. Instead, the giant swords were sent flying. After 3 breaths of time, the giant divine swords still could not break through the icy blue light barrier. When the Surging Wave Palace disciples saw this, they were instantly relieved and regained their confidence and calmness. Some of the elders even sneered mockingly as they mocked Ji Tianqing. "Lad, what other tricks do you have? Use them all." This Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation is the ultimate technique of Surging Waves Palace. Its defense is unparalleled in the world. Everyone in Surging Waves Palace is of one mind. This divine formation gathers all of our strength. With just you alone, no matter how capable you are, you won't be able to do anything to us. Ha ha ha. Little B****, weren't you very arrogant earlier on? We're right here. Come and kill us if you can. The Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation was their greatest reliance. Under the protection of the icy blue light barrier, everyone was safe and at ease. When they heard what the elders said, many deacons and Surging Waves Palace disciples mocked and scolded Ji Tianqing and the others. Ji Tianqing was expressionless and turned a deaf ear to everyone's words. His eyes turned golden as he stared at the Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation expressionlessly, looking for a flaw and a way to break it. On the other hand, Lin Shui, Bai Long, Zhen Hong and the others were furious and filled with killing intent. When they saw the despicable faces of the Surging Waves Palace elders, they all waved their weapons and executed their ultimate killing moves to attack the icy blue light barrier with all their might. However, the sky was filled with blood light, saber light and divine ability shadows. They all bombarded the icy blue light barrier but were completely ineffective. The icy blue light barrier was indestructible and did not leave any marks or cracks after taking a few attacks from everyone. This scene made the elders and disciples of Surging Waves Palace even more confident and arrogant. They laughed loudly and mocked and scolded Lin Shui and the others without restraint. Ha ha ha. You bunch of stupid pigs are truly comical and laughable. I've already said that the Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation's defense is unparalleled in the world. You guys are like ants trying to shake a tree. Even Tianqing can't do anything to us, what more you scum? Don't overestimate yourself. Bastards, stop resisting stubbornly. Kneel down and surrender obediently, kowtow and beg for mercy. Kill all the men and grind their bones to dust. Leave all the women and let everyone, he he he. The elders of Surging Waves Palace cared about their statuses. Although they spoke rudely, they would not be too despicable. However, the deacons and disciples were unbearably vulgar and used all sorts of profanities. Even the Lord of Surging Waves who sat on the lotus platform high in the sky could not help but frown with a displeased expression. However, she was the leader of Surging Waves Palace after all. At this juncture, even if the disciples were unrestrained, she could not stop them. She could only focus and control the God formation with all her might to defend against the suppression and strangulation of the heaven-vanquishing sword formation. Both parties were in a stalemate just like that. A full 100 breaths had passed. Lin Shui, the White Dragon and the others could not do anything to the disciples of Surging Waves Palace. Ji Tianqing remained silent the entire time and stared at the icy blue light barrier with his golden eyes, searching for a flaw in the God formation amidst the billions of divine power meridians. Finally, he raised his brow and opened his eyes slightly, his lips curling into a sinister sneer. I see. The next moment, he gripped the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and attacked brazenly. Chapter 31:17. The elders and disciples of Surging Wave Palace were still immersed in their confidence. They maintained the Surging Wave 9 rotations array while mocking and insulting Ji Tianqing and the others. Under the ice sky barrier, they felt that they were safe and invincible. That was why they were so fearless. However, no one expected that Ji Tianqing would attack when they were at their most arrogant. His attack this time was not an ordinary test. It was a killing blow. Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and he teleported into the night sky. He appeared in the southeast of the Lotus platform, 100 miles away from the Lord of Surging Wave Palace and 1,000 feet below the Lotus platform. This was the place. Beneath his feet was the indestructible ice sky barrier. The ice blue light wall that looked very thick and flashing with cold light actually hid an extremely tiny flaw. There was nothing absolutely perfect in this world. Be it divine weapons, array formations or elixirs, they were all the same. Even though the Surging Wave 9 rotations array was a supreme-grade monarch array formed by 120 million meridians. However, there were still 2 or 3 flaws and errors among the 120 million veins of the formation. These flaws and mistakes were the flaws of the entire array. Of course, even the expert who created this array might not know the existence of the flaws and mistakes, let alone pinpoint the exact location. However, Ji Tianqing did it. Moreover, he found the flaw and found it in just 100 breaths' time. Such ability and methods were comparable to a supreme divine king. Sword breaking 9 heavens. After confirming the location of the flaw, Ji Tianqing held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and stabbed it with all his might. The sword of burial of heaven released an endless amount of blazing white divine light and stabbed the ice sky barrier in the most violent and invincible manner. Boom! Crack! A thunderous sound exploded in the night sky. The seemingly indestructible ice sky barrier was actually pierced through by the blazing white sword light that was thousands of feet long. A hole the size of a house appeared on the ice sky barrier. Immediately after, sword energy and divine power that could destroy everything were injected into the ice sky barrier. Crack! Crack! With a crisp cracking sound, dense cracks appeared around the hole, extending in all directions. Hundreds of cracks spread across the ice blue barrier like a spider web. From the gaps and loopholes, billions of icy blue fragments burst out and scattered in the night sky. It was like a rainstorm of ice crystals. The Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation that the Surging Waves Palace was most proud of was destroyed by Ji Tianqing just like that. At this moment, the ice blue barrier within a radius of 500 miles began to tremble violently. More than 1,000 Surging Waves Palace disciples and 7 elders were all dumbstruck, as though they had been petrified. All the mocking and insulting voices came to an abrupt end, stuck in the throats of the crowd, unable to make the slightest sound. Everyone's body and expression stiffened. His eyes were wide open, revealing a look of extreme shock and fear. The person who was the most shocked and appalled was none other than the Lord of Surging Wave Palace. Originally, she was sitting on the lotus throne, her expression cold and her emotions unperturbed. At this moment, she widened her eyes in shock and stood up abruptly. She no longer had the bearing and demeanor of a palace lord or an expert. How is this possible? She glared at Ji Tianqing and the hole in the ice blue barrier and exclaimed. An incomparable shock filled her heart and soul, causing her to tremble from head to toe. As the saying went, the layman watched the show while the expert watched the artistry. All the Surging Waves Palace disciples saw was Ji Tianqing's domineering and unparalleled strength as he pierced through the ice blue barrier with a single sword strike. However, the Lord of Surging Wave Palace saw it clearly. Ji Tianqing's sword strike was definitely not a random attack. He had seen through the Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation and found the flaw of the God formation, destroying it with a single sword strike. The God formation that our sect is most proud of has a flaw and a flaw. Why is he able to find the flaw of the God formation in a short 100 breaths when I don't know about it? This is ridiculous. After understanding the mystery, the Lord of Surging Wave Palace felt the world spin and she saw stars. In fact, she even felt a little dazed and unreal. After all, everything was way too ridiculous. An outsider, an enemy, knew the Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation better than her. What a joke. Fufufu, ft. The Lord of Surging Wave Palace sneered dejectedly. Suddenly, her throat heated up and she spat out a mouthful of blood. She was cold on the outside but proud on the inside. Yet, she could not take such a blow and spat out blood. Of course, the main reason why she spat out blood was because Ji Tianqing had broken through the Surging Waves 9 Revolutions divine formation. As the core of the God formation, she was definitely implicated and suffered a backlash. Her organs were already severely injured. Crack! Crack! While everyone was still in a daze, Ji Tianqing swung the burial of heaven again and slashed dozens of times at the ice blue barrier. Every single strike was at a tricky spot, landing on the gaps and cracks. The outcome was obvious. With a crisp cracking sound, the ice blue barrier was split into pieces and collapsed on the spot. Splash! Thousands of ice blue fragments fell from the night sky with a loud rumble. Every single shard had a different shape and size. The large ones were the size of mountains while the small ones were the size of houses. All of them crashed onto the ground. In less than 2 breaths, the ice-blue barrier within a radius of 250 kilometers was reduced to smithereens and was completely destroyed. It was only at this moment that everyone from Surging Wave Palace snapped out of their daze and burst into deafening cries and curses. Of course, there were also sorrowful wails and painful screams. The battlefield was in chaos. The Surging Wave Palace disciples' fighting spirit plummeted and their spirits and wills crumbled one after another. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Shui, White Dragon and the others cheered excitedly and charged into the crowd with menacing smiles. All sorts of mystic skills and saber lights and sword shadows rained down like torrential floodwaters. The heaven-vanquishing sword formation sped up as well, releasing a dense rain of gigantic divine swords to kill the Surging Wave Palace disciples. Instantly, the night sky was filled with blood-curdling screams and muffled sounds. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere as severed limbs and blood rained down from the night sky. Without their protection, the Surging Wave Palace disciples were like weak lambs that were slaughtered wantonly. The more arrogant and smug they were previously, the more wretched and tragic they were now. Defeated. To think that I would have been defeated. Utterly defeated. Fufufu, to think that the Surging Wave Palace that has a legacy of 10,000 years would be defeated in the hands of a foreign race lad. I've underestimated him after all. The Lord of Surging Wave stood on the lotus platform with a dispirited expression and murmured dejectedly. Her face was filled with a bitter smile and her expression was sorrowful and desolate. At this point, the defeat of Surging Wave Palace was already a foregone conclusion. However, she calmed down quickly and pulled herself together, returning to her cold self. Although Surging Wave Palace was about to be defeated, she refused to give up. Even if the heaven-vanquishing sword formation sealed this place, she wanted to do her best to lead her disciples out of the encirclement. How many of them could escape and how many of them could survive would all depend on the will of the heavens. The fastest mobile version of the website. Chapter 31:18. Calm down. Disciples of Surging Wave Palace, brace yourselves. The Lord of Surging Wave endured her injuries and stood upright on the lotus platform, shouting with all her might. Her voice was powerful, cold and dignified, containing a power that could shock one's spirit. Initially, the disciples of Surging Wave's palace panicked and were killed to the point that they threw away their armor and were utterly defeated. However, many of them calmed down when they heard the Lord of Surging Waves shout. With 7 elders leading the way, 18 wardens and 800-odd disciples tried their best to gather around the Lord of Surging Wave. Everyone knew that they could no longer be separated now that the Surging Wave 9 Revolutions formation was destroyed. They had to gather around the Lord of Surging Wave to have a chance to counterattack or escape. If it was any other day, they would only need 2 to 3 breaths to gather. However, the process was extremely difficult and took a long time now. As they gathered around the Lord of Surging Wave, they were constantly attacked by Ji Tianqing, Lin Shui and the others. Every few feet they advanced, someone would die. 100 breaths later, everyone finally gathered around the Lord of Surging Wave. At this time, there were only 7 elders, 12 deacons, and more than 400 disciples who had survived. Apart from them, all the other disciples of Surging Wave Palace had died in battle. More than half of them were killed by Ji Tianqing and the others while the rest were killed by the heaven-vanquishing sword formation. It was fortunate that the Lord of Surging Wave had stepped in and defended against the attacks of Ji Tianqing and the others with all his might, neutralizing the attacks of the heaven-vanquishing sword formation and saving the lives of the 400-odd disciples. If not for her desperate rescue, the 400-odd disciples might not have been able to gather. Heavenly Ice Spike Formation. Break through with all your might. After everyone gathered, the Lord of Surging Wave gave the order immediately. More than 400 elders, deacons, and disciples immediately arranged themselves into a formation that resembled a sharp cone made of ice crystals. This was the assault formation that Surging Wave Palace often used. It could effectively gather everyone's strength and break through the defense line and encirclement quickly. The Lord of Surging Wave stood in the middle of the formation, overseeing the entire situation. The 7 elders were at the tip of the formation, turning into the sharpest blades that cut through all obstacles. The 12 wardens were at the back of the formation, covering the back of the 400-odd disciples. At this moment, the disciples of Surging Wave's palace displayed a strong sense of unity. It could be said that they were united and their morale was high. Swish! Swish! Thousands of giant divine swords rained down like a torrential downpour. A deep sense of sorrow surged into his heart as tears of blood gushed from his eyes, and he lamented internally, "The heavens are going to destroy Surging Wave Palace." At that moment, she could already see the outcome of Surging Wave Palace's failure to break out. It was as Ji Tianqing had said before the battle, Surging Wave Palace would be destroyed on the spot, following in the footsteps of Sacred Fire Sect. Since struggling was futile, she might as well give up on breaking out and fight to the death without a care. Although the outcome would not change, she would still have to die here. At the very least, she could release the torrential rage and killing intent in her heart. Kill! Kill that bastard Tianqing at all costs. The Lord Surging Wave stood on the lotus platform, roaring at the top of his lungs with a face covered in blood and tears. The 5 elders, 8 attendants, and 70-odd elite disciples that were lucky enough to survive had long lost their wills and were in complete despair. They knew that there was no hope of breaking out of the encirclement. If they could retaliate and drag Ji Tianqing down with them, their deaths would be worth it. Upon hearing the Lord Surging Wave's orders, they charged towards Ji Tianqing without any regard for their own safety and launched their most ferocious attacks. At that moment, they were like frenzied, bloodthirsty ferocious beasts. They did not care about their own injuries or the deaths of their companions, and only had Ji Tianqing in their eyes. They had lost the ability to think and were left with only a single thought. That was to perish together with Ji Tianqing. Swoosh! 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 Hundreds of divine powers and secret skills gave off dazzling divine light, exploding with destructive power and raining down on Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing made a prompt decision and used his ultimate skill, infinite turbidity, with all his might. Swoosh! With a flash of white light, his body turned transparent and blended into the universe. The universe within a radius of tens of thousands of miles became his protective shield, helping him to withstand all the attacks. The saber radiance, sword shadows, and divine light that blotted out the sky passed through him without any delay, scattering in the universe and disappearing very quickly. Ji Tianqing was unharmed and the people from Surging Wave Palace were destined to be futile. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion, and the rest attacked the disciples of Surging Wave Palace with all their might. The heaven-destroying sword formation also unleashed its full power, sweeping up dozens of sword hurricanes that wreaked havoc on the battlefield. Rumble. Chapter 31:19. Even though the Surging Wave Palace disciples suffered heavy casualties, the remaining 40-odd people turned a blind eye to it. They continued to attack Ji Tianqing in a frenzy. Their bodies burned with blood flames as they went completely berserk. Ji Tianqing continued to sit in the night sky. His body turned transparent and blurry, appearing and disappearing. No matter how they attacked, they could not hurt him at all. All the divine powers scattered on the ground, absorbed and dispelled by heaven and earth. Seizing the opportunity, he controlled the heaven-vanquishing sword formation to kill the Surging Wave Palace disciples. Lin Shui, Zhen Hong and the others attacked with all their might as well, killing the Surging Wave Palace disciples one after another. Finally, 100 breaths passed. The Surging Wave Palace disciples were all killed, leaving only the Surging Wave Palace Master, 4 elders and 3 deacons alive. The battle came to an abrupt end as the Surging Wave Palace Master and the others woke up. The 4 elders and 3 deacons stood close to the lotus platform. Everyone was bathed in blood and their clothes were tattered. Some of them even had broken limbs. Even so, they did not cry out in pain or wail. They merely glared at Ji Tianqing with venomous gazes as they panted heavily. Silence returned to the night sky. Ji Tianqing's figure became clearer and more corporeal as well. He strode towards the surging wave palace master, wielding the sword of burial of heaven, and said indifferently, "Everything is over. Accept your fate. Don't ever admit defeat or surrender. I don't need captives." The surging wave palace master stood on the lotus platform, holding a snake-shaped ice crystal sword in his right hand as he glared at Ji Tianqing with bloodshot eyes. "Are you really going to kill them all without leaving any chance of survival?" She grit her teeth and asked with a hoarse voice. Ji Tianqing's expression was indifferent and he did not reply. The surging wave palace master understood what he meant. However, he was still somewhat indignant as he asked once more, "I'll let you do whatever you want with me. Let them go." Now that surging wave palace is in such a state, it's no different from disbanding. They won't be a threat to you anymore. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said nothing more. In fact, everyone present understood this point. So what if Ji Tianqing only killed the Lord of Surging Waves and spared the 4 elders and the 3 deacons? Would the 7 divine monarchs be deeply grateful and give up on dealing with him? No. They would only be angrier, and their hatred for Ji Tianqing would be even more unforgettable. They would even use all means to take revenge on Ji Tianqing. Therefore, how could there be any mercy between life and death enemies? Ha ha ha. So we really brought this upon ourselves. The Lord of Surging Waves was filled with despair as he smirked coldly. Murderous intent surged from her body as she madly gathered God power in her body and roared hysterically. "Since there's no way out and you're going to die either way, then I'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget." As she spoke, she brazenly self-destructed. His shriveled body trembled violently, igniting a bloody flame that soared into the sky. The godhood in his mind was madly devouring all of the god power, preparing for the most violent explosion. A destructive aura spread out with her as the center. The 4 elders and the 3 deacons were not surprised by the outcome at all. They even made a prompt decision to self-destruct. In an instant, 8 balls of bloody flame soared into the sky, exuding a destructive aura of death. Seeing the scene, Ji Tianqing frowned and a cold light flashed past his eyes. Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion and the rest were also shocked. Their expressions turned grave and their hearts were in their throats. Everyone knew that 8 divine monarchs self-destructing together was enough to destroy an area with a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. Perhaps Ji Tianqing was strong enough to withstand the power of the self-destructing and only be seriously injured. Lin Shui and Sir God Blood Illusion were not weak either. They should be able to survive, but they would be more seriously injured. However, Zhen Hong, left emissary Jin, Bai Long and the rest would not be able to withstand it. They would definitely die on the spot. These people were Ji Tianqing's friends and companions. They were very important to him. Therefore, the Lord of Surging Waves said to teach him a lesson he would never forget. Once they succeeded in self-destructing, the lesson would definitely be tragic. At the moment of life and death, Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion, left emissary Jin and the rest were so anxious that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "Mr. Tianqing, think of a way. We are doomed. Even if we teleport and escape now, we will not be able to escape from the range of their self-destructing. Mister, you are very powerful. You will definitely be able to stop them from self-destructing, right?" Looking at the situation, it was too late to escape. They could only think of a way to stop the people from Surging Waves Palace from self-destructing. However, the 8 divine monarchs were prepared to die and self-destructed at the same time. No matter how strong Ji Tianqing was, he could only stop 3 people from self-destructing. He could not do more than that. No matter how one looked at it, they would definitely die. Ha 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 ha, you must be in despair, right? If you don't let us live, don't think about living either. Let's embrace death together. Even if I die, I won't let you off. It's too late to regret now. Cry. Beg for mercy. In the bloody flames that filled the sky, the master of surging waves' palace, the elders, and the deacons were all laughing crazily. They were about to be annihilated, but they felt a sense of relief and vented their anger without restraint. Seeing this, Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, and the others were worried, but there was nothing they could do. Only Ji Tianqing and Bai Long were still calm. Ji Tianqing looked at the master of surging waves' palace and the others in the bloody flames and said calmly, "Allowing you to self-destruct is my mercy to you. However, if you want to drag us down with you, you are thinking too much." As he spoke, he raised his right hand and took out a black divine pagoda. Swoosh! The black and mysterious divine pagoda instantly grew to a height of 10,000 feet and stood in the night sky. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a ray of white light that swept by Long, Zhen Hong, Lin Shui, left emissary Jin, and the others. Of course, Qian Yu and the Black Dragon were also included. With a flash of white light, everyone disappeared. The next moment, Ji Tianqing led everyone into the divine pagoda and appeared on the third level. Endless darkness surrounded them and a vast wasteland underfoot. This space was silent and empty. Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, and the others immediately understood Ji Tianqing's intention and heaved a sigh of relief. They knew that with the protection of the divine pagoda, everyone should be safe. At the same time, the master of surging waves' palace, the elders, and the deacons had accumulated their strength to the limit and were about to explode. They were laughing cruelly and bloodthirstily, waiting to see Ji Tianqing and the others struggle and cry in despair. However, with a flash of white light, Ji Tianqing and the others disappeared. There was only one divine pagoda left in the night sky. It was mysterious and powerful, with a majestic aura. Seeing this, the master of surging waves' palace and the others were dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with extreme grief and resentment. No! The master of surging waves' palace let out a shrill cry. She knew that the plan had failed again. Their self-destruct couldn't hurt Ji Tianqing and the others at all. It was destined to be a futile effort. But now, it was too late for regrets. They couldn't stop the self-destruct. Boom! The next moment, 8 divine emperors exploded at the same time, releasing the most dazzling light in the night sky. The fastest mobile version of the website. Chapter 31:20. Rumble. An earth-shattering explosion shook the heavens. 8 balls of colorful divine light rose into the sky like mushroom clouds. The entire heaven-destroying sword formation was filled with dazzling divine lights. There was no blind spot. A divine power storm that could destroy the heavens and earth spread out in all directions, exploding with a loud bang. The first to be affected was the Jiutian 10 Absolutes Tower. This tower was thousands of feet tall, and it was covered in black light. It was engulfed by the destructive divine power, tumbling and flying towards the north. Immediately after, the heaven-destroying sword formation within a radius of 1,000 miles was also blown apart and collapsed on the spot. The 20,000 giant swords were shattered into pieces, turning into endless fragments that surged in all directions like a torrent. The colorful divine power flood spread in all directions at the speed of light. 10,000 miles, 30,000 miles, 50,000 miles, 80,000 miles, wherever the torrent of divine power passed, it swept away and destroyed everything in its path. Mountains and rivers were flattened, and the earth was dug tens of thousands of feet deep. All the flowers, trees, rocks, birds, and beasts were turned into dust in an instant. Originally, the divine power flood from the self-destruction could spread to an area of 140,000 miles. However, the heaven-destroying sword formation offset part of the power. As a result, the divine power flood spread to a radius of 100,000 miles and gradually dissipated. The world was illuminated with colorful colors, and it was as bright as day. The horrifying loud noise didn't disappear for a long time. The dazzling divine light lasted for 15 minutes before it was extinguished. The earth trembled violently, and the dust that covered the sky didn't dissipate. With the explosion as the center, 50,000 miles to the north was flat like a desert covered with golden sand. It was the same 50,000 miles to the south. It was a barren and dead silence. Of course, 50,000 miles to the south was beyond the God-burying mountain range and bordered the territory of the Raging Flame's divine kingdom. There was a grassland there, but it had also become a sunken desert. Ripples were left on the ground, and the depth and impact of the explosion were decreasing. The power of the self-destruction of 8 divine lords was actually so powerful. Even if a dozen meteors fell here, they wouldn't be able to create such a terrifying destructive power. This was the real destruction of heaven and earth. With such an earth-shattering momentum, one could see the light and feel the abnormality from a million miles away. After an unknown amount of time. Perhaps it was 15 minutes, or perhaps it was 2 hours. Peace was restored between heaven and earth. The loud noise and the dazzling divine light dissipated. Only the smoke and dust that covered the sky still filled the world, and the wind couldn't blow it away. The long night finally passed. A new day had arrived, and the sun rose from the east. The hazy morning sun shone down, but it couldn't penetrate the smoke and dust. The world was still dark. 5,000 miles away from the explosion, in a pit filled with dust. The divine pagoda lying in the sand lit up with a mysterious black light. Whoosh! It shook off the sand and stones that covered its body and flew back into the sky, floating quietly. Then, a white light flashed in the sky, and several figures appeared one after another. Blood, the 6 people, and Zhen were all safe and sound. Even though the previous battle had drained a great deal of their divine power, and they had also sustained injuries of varying degrees, it was still not enough. Now they were clean and refreshed. They were no longer in a sorry state with disheveled hair and bloodstains. Of course, blood. Blood. Zhen Hong were seriously injured. They couldn't recover in a short period of time. Bai Long, Qian Yu and Hei Long didn't appear. They were also seriously injured, so they went into the distorted spacetime to heal. They had gained a lot from the previous night's battle. They understood a lot. They only needed to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time, and their power would increase rapidly. When Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, and the others saw the vast desert filled with dust, they were all shocked and let out cries of surprise. Oh my God! Is this the power of a divine Lord's self-explosion? Within the range of my divine sense, everything within a radius of 20,000 miles has become a desert. Not even a blade of grass can grow. This is too terrifying. It's really destructive. It's really terrifying. Luckily, Master has the divine tower. It blocked the power of the self-explosion at the critical moment. Otherwise, we would all be dead. Everyone looked around and clicked their tongues in wonder as they discussed in shock. Ji Tianqing was calm. He wasn't excited at all. He was even a little disappointed. He looked at the desert under his feet and sighed regretfully. Sigh. Life is really not what you want. I worked for half the night for nothing. I can't even get a space ring, let alone a divine spark fragment. Indeed. He had wasted 4 hours and spent so much effort to kill more than 1,000 people from the palace of surging waves. Divine weapons, space rings, and godhead fragments could be seen everywhere on the 1,000-mile-wide battlefield. If he could clean up the battlefield, he would be able to obtain tens of billions of cultivation resources and divine weapons. Most importantly, he could take the divine spark fragments of the palace of surging waves and the 7 elders. He could gain more than 10 precepts. But it was a pity. The self-explosion of the palace of surging waves and the others destroyed everything within a radius of 100,000 miles. The bones, space rings, and divine spark fragments scattered on the battlefield were also destroyed and turned into dust. Everything within 100,000 miles was clean. What spoils of war were there? After a while, when Lin Shui and the others finished discussing and calmed down, Ji Tianqing waved his hand dispiritedly and said, "There's nothing to see. We should go." Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, and the others were stunned. They looked at him doubtfully. "Kid, we destroyed the palace of surging waves and caused such a big commotion. It will definitely shock the raging flames divine country. We created a miracle. Why aren't you happy at all?" Lin Shui put her hands on her hips and looked at Ji Tianqing with a questioning look. Left emissary Jin also asked doubtfully, "Young master, we fought 2 battles in one night. First, we destroyed the sacred fire sect, and then the palace of surging waves. The 2 sects were completely wiped out, and we didn't lose a single one. This is an unprecedented victory. You haven't even entered the raging flames divine country, and your fame has spread everywhere. How domineering and awe-inspiring is this? You should be happy about such a joyous event." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said unhappily, "What's the use of that fame? Apart from making the raging flames divine country unite to encircle and annihilate us, it will only attract criticism and hatred. We worked in vain for half a night and didn't even get a single divine stone. If it were you, would you be happy?" Left emissary Jin suddenly choked, not knowing what to say. The blood dragon right emissary's expression was a bit strange. He muttered in a low voice, "Why? Young master's focus is different from ours." The blood illusion god monarch nodded in agreement and said, "Maybe we are too inexperienced and have a shallow vision. We are also making a fuss over nothing. To young master, this kind of thing has long been common. There's nothing to be excited about. Well, when we get used to it, we should be a lot calmer." Chapter 31-21. The black divine ship, which was thousands of feet long, passed through the smoke and dust in the sky and flew south at lightning speed. Soon, the divine ship crossed tens of thousands of miles of desert and left the god-burying mountain range. After entering a vast grassland, they officially entered the territory of the raging flame divine country. Lin Shui, blood illusion god, and Zhen Hong all entered a secret room to heal their injuries. Left emissary Jin and blood dragon right emissary steered the divine ship and took turns to rest and heal their injuries. Before setting off, they had asked Ji Tianqing, where should they go next? Although they were entering the raging flame divine country, did they have a specific destination? Ji Tianqing said calmly, "Just keep flying south." The specific destination was not the raging flame divine country but the imperial city of the Great Yan Empire. Left emissary Jin and blood dragon right emissary understood that they were just passing by the raging flame divine country. If there were no special circumstances, there was no need to stay. As for Ji Tianqing, after answering this question, he entered a secret room. He took out the Jotian 10 Absolutes Tower and placed it on the stone table in the secret room. Then, he entered the distorted spacetime of the divine tower and flew toward the depths of spacetime. Just now, Yinyao had used her divine will to call him and ask him to quickly enter the distorted spacetime as there was something important. Therefore, Ji Tianqing did not delay and hurried over to check the situation. Swoosh! Soon, he flew into the depths of the distorted spacetime. Still far away, he saw a huge blood-colored divine flame rising fiercely in the spacetime. He was very observant and immediately sensed that something was wrong. The power of the bloody flame sacred tree seems to have recovered to its peak and even strengthened a bit. What's going on? It shouldn't be. Full of doubts, he sped up and flew under the bloody flame sacred tree. Yinyao, who was wearing a white dress, was standing under the sacred tree and observing the sacred tree. Sensing Ji Tianqing's arrival, she retracted her gaze and turned to look at Ji Tianqing. "Tianqing, come and see what's going on." Ji Tianqing quickly flew to her side and asked, "Yao Yao, what happened?" Yunyao pointed at the blood flame sacred tree and explained, "Not long ago, right after I finished my seclusion, I noticed something strange about this sacred tree. Previously, its power was a little weak, and its blood flames were also dormant. But now, its power seems to have recovered, and its divine flames are surging violently." After saying that, she flew to the top of the tree with Ji Tianqing and pointed at a cluster of lush branches. "Look over there. I clearly remember that the tree was bare, without any leaves or fruits, but the branches actually sprouted." Ji Tianqing looked in the direction she was pointing. Sure enough, he saw 3 light purple sprouts growing out of the bare dark red branches. He looked in another direction, and soon discovered that a few clusters of branches had sprouted light purple buds. The aura of the blood flame sacred tree was no longer as dormant as before. It was actually full of vitality and thriving. Even Ji Tianqing was surprised by this discovery. Why would the blood flame sacred tree recover its power and sprout sprouts for no reason? "Yao Yao, have you done anything to the sacred tree?" Yunyao naturally shook her head. She pointed at the space around the sacred tree and said, "All this time, Ku, Wushuang, White Dragon, Xianyu, and Black Dragon have been cultivating around this sacred tree. Other than absorbing the power of the sacred tree, we haven't done anything else. Even the divine fruit you gave us, we have been treasuring it, and we haven't refined it yet." Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered. He said, "Logically speaking, you have been absorbing the power of the sacred tree. It has been twisting the space-time and can't replenish its power, so it shouldn't have recovered. There must be a reason why it has absorbed a large amount of divine power. That's why it became like this." Yunyao reminded him, "We have been cultivating here all this time and haven't done anything. You, on the other hand, think carefully. Did you do something?" Hearing her words, Ji Tianqing had a flash of inspiration. He vaguely guessed the answer. "I understand now. Previously, I had been fighting. First, I killed more than 1,000 people of the Sacred Fire sect, and then more than 1,000 people of the Surging Waves Palace. The bloody flame divine tree must have absorbed the powerful blood energy and divine power released by the death of the 3,000 godly spirits." Yunyao was startled. She nodded in agreement and said, "Yes, your analysis is very reasonable. The blood flame sacred tree was condensed from the blood and souls of millions of soldiers. It is a spiritual quasi-king level sacred tree. It is natural that it would take the initiative to absorb the power of the bloodline and soul." After a pause, she frowned and asked, "For the past 10,000 years, the blood flame sacred tree has been in the blood flame secret realm. Have you ever heard that it can absorb the power of the bloodline and soul to continue growing?" Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, "I haven't. It seems that everyone thinks that the blood flame sacred tree won't grow anymore. But what is suspicious is that when the blood flame sacred tree first appeared 10,000 years ago, it was only 10,000 feet tall. But now, the blood flame sacred tree is 10,000 feet tall. This means that it is still slowly growing 10 times. Yunyao nodded slightly and said thoughtfully, "Tianqing, these are all our guesses. We can't be sure yet. The next time you fight, pay attention to the blood flame sacred tree and you will know the answer. Also, if the sacred tree is placed in the distorted space and time, it will absorb the power of the bloodline and soul. The divine tower will be a hindrance. If we move the sacred tree outside of the divine tower, it may be able to absorb more bloodline and soul power." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. "Yes, this is a good suggestion. I will try to refine the sacred tree. When I can control it freely, I will move it out of the divine tower." This matter was decided. Ji Tianqing just noticed that Yun Yao's strength had increased again. how long has it been since we last met? Yao Yao, you have broken through to the second level of the Divine Monarch realm? Ji Tianqing looked at her with shining eyes, and his face was full of surprise. Yun Yao nodded slightly and explained, Ku and I have benefited a lot from the previous battles. When we are in seclusion here, we have an endless supply of divine stones and origin stones. We can also absorb the power of the blood flame sacred tree. If we can't break through under such favorable conditions, then we are the reincarnation of the divine monarch in vain. Also, to break through the shackles from the heavenly god realm to the divine monarch realm is extremely difficult. Once we break through to the divine monarch realm, our future cultivation will be smooth. At this point, Ji Tianqing thought of something more important and asked with concern, "Oh right, Yao Yao, now that you have reached the divine monarch realm, how much of your soul's memory have you recovered?" Yun Yao obviously knew that he was referring to goddess Yaoguang's memory. Her eyes dimmed and she said with disappointment, "I have only recovered about 80%. Most of them are trivial matters and there are many divine arts and secret arts. The most important information and experiences are in the last 20% of my memory. I think it is because I have only merged with 6 divine pearls that my memory is missing." Ji Tianqing nodded and comforted her. "Don't worry, even if I have to travel through the universe, I will help you find the last divine pearl and restore your memory." Chapter 31-22. Regarding Yun Yao's divine soul memories, searching for the last divine pearl. And the secrets of the shattering of the 5 elements world, falling from the main world to a low-level world. And the outcome of Kenshin's fall and the battle of gods 1,000 years ago, and the current situation of the god realm, including heading to the dragon realm, rescuing Ji Wuhan, and so on. All of these were pressured in Ji Tianqing's heart, waiting for him to reveal and execute them one by one. But these things could not be done overnight. It required a relatively long time, so there was no use in being anxious. He comforted Yun Yao with a few words and went to visit Ji Ku and Ji Wushuang's situation. Ji Ku was still in closed-door cultivation. Her strength had reached the limit of the first stage and was at the critical moment of breaking through to the second stage. Ji Tianqing believed that it would not take long for her to break through to the second stage of the divine monarch realm. As for Ji Wushuang, she was also wholeheartedly in closed-door cultivation. The incident that happened in the Blood Flame Kingdom's royal city previously made her feel guilty. She felt that her strength was not enough and implicated Shenhong and her father. After returning to the distorted space-time, she had been working hard to cultivate. The current her had long refined the divine fruit of the blood flame sacred tree and was at the peak of the 9th level of the celestial god realm. She was working hard to break through to the divine monarch realm. With abundant cultivation resources and the help of the blood flame divine fruit, breaking through to the divine monarch realm was a sure thing. At most half a year, at least a month, she would definitely break through. Ji Tianqing also went to visit White Dragon, Qianyu, and Black Dragon. There was no need to say much about their situation. They had suffered considerable injuries in the previous battle and were currently recuperating. Seeing that everyone's situation was fine, Ji Tianqing sat under the sacred tree with ease and also began to cultivate. He took out a blood flame divine fruit and used the devouring ability to slowly refine it. In a short half a month, he refined the divine fruit and his divine power increased by several times. Naturally, his strength also reached the limit of the 6th stage. But he was not in a hurry to break through to the 7th level of the divine monarch realm. He took out many divine spark fragments and began to refine them one by one. He wanted to accumulate his strength to the limit before breaking through to the 7th stage. This way, the success rate was also extremely high. Soon, another 20 days had passed. Not only did he refine Xingwuyin and the other divine sovereign's quintessence fragments, but he also gained 12 new divine Tao laws. His ability had also reached the limit, just a sliver away from 7th stage realm. Now, he had 292 laws, and his strength had reached the limit. The divine power accumulated in his body was also surging violently. Hence, he borrowed a large amount of God Stones and Origin Stones energy to charge towards 7th stage realm. This process was rather long, but it was also the crucial moment for him to advance from a middle divine lord to a high divine lord. Therefore, the seclusion this time was very important. Raging Flame Divine Kingdom's royal city. Inside a resplendent palace, in a secret room that was filled with divine power, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. Prince Lien, who was dressed in a black robe with a golden dragon pattern, was still sitting in the pool of 5-colored divine liquid with his eyes closed. Now, after a few days of recuperation and consuming a large number of divine pills and elixirs, his injuries had recovered significantly. Not only had the wounds all over his body healed, but the scars had also faded. Even the injuries to his internal organs, bones, and meridians had mostly recovered. Only the injuries to his divine soul were more troublesome, and he still needed a long time to recover. At this moment, the door to the secret room lit up with a golden light and a soft sound. Obviously, Lien Er, who was guarding outside the door of the secret room, had something important to report. Prince Lien temporarily stopped his cultivation and slowly opened his eyes. It's all thanks to the healing pills Chanyi sent that I was able to recover so quickly. At this rate, I'll be fully recovered in half a year at most. Prince Lien lowered his head and looked at himself, muttering to himself. Then, he raised his hand and sent out a beam of golden light, opening the door to the secret room. A tall divine race member wearing golden armor and a helmet entered the secret room with his head lowered. He was the Lien Er. He quickly walked to the pool of divine liquid and bowed respectfully. Although his expression was a little strange and his eyes were a little dim, Prince Lien didn't think much of it. He just assumed that his injuries hadn't healed yet, which was why he looked like this. After all, he had attacked the Lien Er in a fit of rage and was severely injured. Lien Er, what's the matter? Prince Lien looked at the Lien Er expressionlessly and asked. The Lien Er lowered his head even more and said in a low voice, Your Highness, this subordinate has just received news from the Cloud sect. It's bad news. After the lesson last time, the Lien Er had learned to be smart. He was determined not to let Prince Lien make wild guesses and had to give an answer first. Otherwise, Prince Lien would fly into a rage after losing face, and he would be injured. This move was indeed effective. Prince Lien immediately frowned. His expression turned gloomy, and a chill emanated from his body. Didn't I have the Cloud sect spies and scouts keep an eye on the border and the God-burying mountain range? The bad news you speak of, could it be that the Surging Water Palace and the Sacred Fire sect's operation failed? They couldn't stop Tianqing and let that bastard escape into the Raging Flame Divine Nation. It was obvious. Prince Lien had long since anticipated this possibility and had mentally prepared himself. He already had a sufficient understanding of Ji Tianqing's strength and methods, and paid enough attention to them. This was already the worst result he could accept. Unexpectedly, the Lien Er still shook his head and said in a trembling voice, Your Highness, not only did the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Water Palace fail their mission, but they were also killed. What? The sudden bad news caused Prince Lien's expression to change. He jumped to his feet. His expression became extremely gloomy and even a little ferocious. His widened eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. After a long silence, his anger gradually subsided and he gradually calmed down. Lien Er, tell me in detail. What are the exact casualties? Until now, he was still hoping that the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Water Palace had only suffered heavy losses. Perhaps Xing Wuyin, the master of the Surging Water Palace, and the others could survive. However, the Lien Er's answer completely extinguished his last shred of hope. Your Highness, the Cloud sect spies saw with their own eyes that the Surging Water Palace's experts self-destructed and destroyed everything within a radius of 100,000 miles. A desert appeared in the God-burying mountain range. It was like a huge sinkhole. Not a single blade of grass grew and no traces were left. Furthermore, the 3,100 people from the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Water Palace were all killed. Prince Lien's vision darkened when he heard that. His blood boiled again and his chest heaved violently. How could this be? That's impossible. There were more than 3,100 people from the two major sects combined. There were also more than 10 upper-level divine lords. How could they all be killed in a single night? That's right, the people from the Surging Water Palace self-destructed. They wanted to die together with Tianqing. Even if that bastard was lucky enough to survive, he must be severely injured. His companions should all be dead, right? The Lien heir was silent for a moment before saying in a sorrowful tone, "Your Highness, that's not the case." The Cloud Sect spies were secretly watching and saw that the divine worship they were on left the God-burying mountain range and entered the kingdom of gods. Sword breaking the 9 heavens. Chapter 31-23. Prince Lien was stunned once again. Even his strength seemed to have been sucked out of him as he slumped into the divine liquid pool. Splash, the 5-colored divine liquid splashed out, creating waves in the pool. Prince Lien was silent for a long time before he laughed in anger. Ha ha ha. He muttered to himself, the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Wave Palace were completely annihilated. But he survived, and with his companions, he swaggered into the Raging Flames divine kingdom on a divine ship. He's humiliating me. This damned beast is arrogant, conceited, and lawless, but I can't do anything to him. Once, twice, thrice, I've lost to him again and again. I don't know how many times I've been defeated. Why? Why does Haotian care for him so much? Why is it that none of my subordinates are able to kill him? Prince Lien roared as if he had gone mad. His body ignited with a bloody flame that boiled and evaporated the divine liquid in the pool. The Lien heir was intimidated by his anger and murderous aura. He took a few steps back and knelt on the ground, trembling. He had followed Prince Lien for many years and had always been one of the prince's most trusted aides. Even the prince had always been a calm and collected person. He was even a little feminine and gentle. This was the second time he had seen Prince Lien so angry and irritable. He had lost his composure like a savage beast. The first time Prince Lien lost his composure was when his brother and mother were killed by the emperor, and he couldn't do anything about it. How could the Lien heir not panic when the same thing happened again? He was afraid that Prince Lien would lose control and kill him. Prince Lien continued to roar and roar. His anger and murderous aura did not weaken at all. The Lien heir tried to persuade him, "Please calm down, Your Highness. You're still injured, please don't hurt yourself." Prince Lien ignored him and continued to roar. His eyes were still bloodshot and dark red. The Lien heir continued, "Your Highness, you still have a few trump cards in your hands. The Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Wave Palace may be your lackeys, but they're still at the bottom. Even when you sent them to the border to intercept them, you only treated them as cannon fodder. Even if the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Waves Palace were destroyed, wasn't that within your expectations? Moreover, the people of the Surging Waves Palace were loyal and brave. They would rather self-destruct than surrender. Even if they didn't kill Tianqing, at least they taught Tianqing a painful lesson." Hearing this, Prince Lien's anger subsided a little. Seeing that it was effective, Lien heir continued to persuade him. Furthermore, the destruction of the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Waves Palace can only be blamed on them for acting on their own accord. It's not that your strategy wasn't brilliant enough. You can have them guard the border and join forces to besiege Tianqing and the others, or surround them without attacking. However, the Sacred Fire sect was eager to gain merit. They left the border without permission and entered the God-burying mountain range to search for Tianqing and the others. The Palace of Surging Waves wants to take advantage of the situation and take advantage of the situation. Lien Er told Prince Lien in detail about the news sent by the Flying Cloud sect. After hearing this, Grand Prince Lien calmed down. His shame and anger lessened a lot. I see. His face was ferocious as he sneered. I've ordered the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Waves Palace to form a formation at the border and join forces to stop that bastard Tianqing. This was something that was in the bag, something that he was confident of. Even if the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Waves Palace are trash and can't kill Tianqing, they can at least trap him. How can such a mature and stable plan fail? It turned out that it was them who ignored my words and caused such a disaster. This group of bastards who deserve to die by 1,000 cuts, they only have themselves to blame. They can't do anything right, but they're good at ruining things. Clearly, Prince Lien blamed the failure of the plan on the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Waves Palace. As a result, the frustration in his heart lessened a lot. The anger and humiliation of losing to Ji Tianqing also lessened by more than half. Seeing that Prince Lien had calmed down, Lien Er secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly asked, Your Highness, the Flying Cloud sect followed your orders and sent out all their spies to the north of the kingdom. They're only responsible for tracking and won't attack without permission. As of now, the whereabouts of Tianqing's group are under their control. Prince Lien felt a little comforted and nodded approvingly. That old man Nia Feiyun is more sensible. He follows my orders and won't act without permission. Where is that little bastard now? The Lien Er bowed and reported, after the divine ship left the God-burying mountain range, it flew straight south without stopping. 15 minutes ago, the Flying Cloud sect spies reported that the divine ship has arrived at the Flowing Wind region's Mountain Wind City. Prince Lien frowned and sneered. All the way south. After passing through the Flowing Wind region and 5 more regions, it will reach the Raging Flames Royal City. Could it be that he guessed that I'm in the Bloody Flames Royal City and came for me? Does he want to repeat the scene at the Bloody Flames Royal City and kill me in front of the kingdom's citizens and experts? The Lien Er immediately flattered, the Bloody Flames Royal City is like a prince's palace, gathering all the experts of the kingdom. How could that brat barge in? Your Highness has already laid down an inescapable net. As long as that brat dares to come, he will definitely die without a burial place. Prince Lien nodded slightly. Pass down the order, have the Flying Cloud sect continue to follow and monitor that divine ship. If they can find out the brat's injuries and the casualties of his companions, I will reward them handsomely. In addition, have the elites of the Myriad Flow sect, the Divine Blade Union, and the other 7 sects gather in the south. My inescapable net will tighten step by step. Finally, I will crush that brat outside the Raging Flames Royal City. The Lien Er cupped his hands and acknowledged the order. He then asked, Your Highness, will the people of the He Tian sect's Raging Flames branch move together with the other 9 sects or stay in the Royal City and await orders? Prince Lien thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, The people of the Raging Flames branch are one of my 2 trump cards. Currently, we have not reached the stage of closing the net, so they do not need to move out. They just need to conserve their energy. This subordinate understands. The Lien Er nodded and stood in silence. Prince Lien pondered for a moment and asked, Is there any news from the royal city? The emperor should know about the matter of the Bloody Flames divine kingdom. What is his reaction? The Lien Er shook his head. Several sirs have already reported, but the emperor did not have much of a reaction. He only reprimanded you a few times in the royal court, saying that you did not manage the country well and that you still have a lot to learn and experience. Everyone in the royal court knows that the emperor wants you to stay outside and never return to the royal city. Ha ha ha. Prince Lien revealed a sinister smile and said in a low voice, Sooner or later, I will go back and trample on his face in front of everyone. Then, I will talk about brotherhood with him. Right, is there any news from the Green Jade Palace? It has been 9 years since the ruins were discovered. Why is the progress still so slow? Mobile version of the website. Chapter 31-24. At the mention of the Green Jade Palace, Lian Er's expression and gaze became much more solemn. Want, free, look, whole, edition, please, 100, do, search, because he knew very well that this was what His Highness cared about the most. After all, the Green Jade Palace was a relic from 10,000 years ago. After many investigations in the Great Yan Empire and countless historical records and legends, they came to a conclusion. It was very likely that the owner of that ruin was the famous god King Azure Jade, who had walked out of the Great Yan Empire 10,000 years ago. Even though the Azure Jade Divine King had long disappeared, it was unknown whether he was in seclusion or had left the Northern Heaven region. However, it was an indisputable fact that Celestial King Azure Jade had made his name in the Great Yan Empire and had lived in the Great Yan Empire for more than 3,000 years. The various factions of the Great Yan Empire believed that the Green Jade Palace was the cave abode of the Green Jade Supreme Being in the Great Yan Empire. There must be a heaven-shaking treasure hidden inside. King-level weapons and medicines, as well as king-level techniques and secret magics, were all supreme treasures. Taking a step back, even if the Green Jade Palace did not have these things. Only God King Azure Jade's cultivation experience, his insights when creating divine powers were treasures that countless divine lords yearned for even in their dreams. Especially those 9th stage realm peak god monarchs. If he could read God King Green Jade's cultivation insights and experience, he would have a greater chance of breaking through to the God King realm. The appearance of the Green Jade Palace had caused a huge commotion in the Great Yan Empire. Almost all the peak divine lords and top factions were determined to explore the Azure Jade Divine Palace and get a share of the loot. Even if the royal family of the Great Yan Empire took over the Green Jade Palace, they would not be able to intimidate the other factions and experts. Moreover, the Great Yan Emperor's actions had angered the public. Dozens of top forces from the empires and the various divine kingdoms had joined forces to rebel against the imperial family. In the end, as the situation worsened, Great Yan's emperor had no choice but to compromise and give in to stabilize the situation. With Great Yan's imperial family as the leader, they worked together with the 49 top factions to research and explore the Verdant Jade Palace. These 50 forces formed an alliance and worked together to keep the secret and seal off any news about the Green Jade Palace. All research and exploration activities were carried out in secret, and very few people knew about them. Unfortunately, the Green Jade Palace was too powerful and mysterious. There were king-level divine arrays everywhere. After 9 years of research, the 50 forces had only managed to decipher a few outer divine arrays. They hadn't even seen the entrance of the Green Jade Palace. Prince Lian's Hetian sect was one of the biggest sects in the Great Yan Empire. Naturally, it was one of the 50 sections. Therefore, he was determined to obtain the Green Jade Palace. He had fantasized more than once about the opening of the gates of the Green Jade Palace. He would definitely be able to represent the Hetian sect and enter the Divine Palace to search for treasures. If he could obtain a king-grade divine artifact, or God King Green Jade's cultivation experience, and inheritance, he would have a greater chance of breaking through to the God King realm. Once he became the deity king, the entire history of the Great Yan Empire would be rewritten. When the time came, he would return to the imperial capital and kill the Great Yan Emperor in front of everyone to avenge his brother and mother. The entire Great Yan Empire would fall into his hands. Without a doubt, the Green Jade Palace was the opportunity for him to take revenge and seize the throne. It was also the greatest opportunity of his life. The Lian heir bowed respectfully and reported through voice transmission, "Your Highness, the Vice Sect Master sent word yesterday that there's been progress in the Green Jade Palace. The 12 sects have joined forces and cracked another king-grade divine formation outside the ruins. They're one step closer to the Divine Palace's entrance. It's estimated that they'll reach the main entrance in 2 to 3 years. Prince Lien nodded to show that he understood. He waved his hand and said, "The progress in the Green Jade Palace is very slow. It won't be seen in 3 to 5 years. There's no need to pay attention to it in the short term. I have to solve the problem at hand first. You may go and pass on the order." "Yes, Your Highness." The Lien heir bowed and left the secret chamber to pass on the order. Before long, Prince Lien's order was passed on to the 9 sects and factions. Therefore, the various factions quickly moved and began to gather in the south to tighten their defense. Everyone knew that the young prince wanted to complete the final encirclement outside the Raging Flame capital and deal the fatal blow to Tianqing. The scorching sun was high in the sky in Skyfire County. A ferocious-looking pitch-black divine ship was flying above the vast sea of clouds, heading south as fast as lightning. This was Lin Shui's ship. Left Emissary Jean and Blood Dragon Right Emissary were still driving the divine ship with full concentration. It had been 20 days since the divine ship entered the Raging Flame divine country. During this time, Left Emissary Jean and Blood Dragon took turns to heal their injuries. Their injuries had mostly recovered. At this time, the two were discussing in low voices. "Blood Dragon, the more I think about it, the stranger it is. We caused such a big commotion in the God-burying mountain range. Prince Lien must be mad, right? It's reasonable to say that he would gather a large number of troops and desperately encircle us, right? But since we entered the Raging Flame divine country, it's been calm. It's been 20 days and no one has come to intercept us. Isn't this too strange? What is Prince Lien trying to do?" Left Emissary Jean frowned with a puzzled expression. Blood Dragon Right Emissary thought for a moment and chuckled. "Perhaps we're too fast and even the prince's men can't catch up to us. Or they didn't find any trace of us. That's impossible, right?" Left Emissary Jean subconsciously shook his head. "The divine ship is very fast, but there are many forces under Prince Lien. There will always be someone who can find us." Blood Dragon Right Emissary smiled. Maybe the destruction of the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Wave Palace was too big a blow to Prince Lien, making him completely terrified and not dare to deal with us anymore. Or maybe he was so angry that his injuries suddenly worsened and he couldn't keep his life. Left Emissary Jean glanced at him with a strange expression. "Are you serious?" "Ha!" Blood Dragon Right Emissary chuckled. "Of course not. What is Prince Lien's identity? How could he be hit by such a setback? I reckon that he must be mad with shame after losing to young Master Tianqing so many times in a row. Now that he has suffered a big loss and learned his lesson, he definitely won't dare to make a move easily. He might be planning an even bigger conspiracy and gathering the strongest forces to give us a fatal blow." Left Emissary Jean hurriedly nodded in agreement. "That's right, I think so too. Therefore, not only can't we relax our guard, we have to be even more vigilant." In several secret chambers of the divine ship, Lin Shui, Han Hong, and the rest were still cultivating and recuperating. In Ji Tianqing's secret chamber, the divine pagoda was still placed on the stone table. He sat upright in the distorted spacetime of the divine pagoda and cultivated under the blood flame sacred tree. At this time, he was currently at the final juncture of breaking through to the 7th level divine lord realm. Golden light radiated from all over his body, fluctuating with a powerful and mighty divine power aura. After a full 18 hours, he suddenly ignited with golden divine flames, turning into a golden divine dragon that soared into the sky. Boom! Following a loud bang like muffled thunder, he finally broke through the shackles and obstacles, successfully breaking through to the 7th level divine lord realm. Sword breaking the 9 heavens. Chapter 31-25. An incomparably vigorous and imposing aura spread out in all directions. Ji Tianqing was like the sun, blooming with the most dazzling golden light, illuminating a radius of 10,000 miles. The divine power in his body was also surging violently, giving off a dull sound of wind and thunder. From this moment onwards, he was a 7th-degree realm upper-level divine lord. Compared to before, not only had his strength increased by several times, his realm and foundation had also become more vigorous. After all, he had condensed 292 types of divine Tao laws and had mastered all kinds of divine abilities and secret skills. Such a strength and foundation was comparable to a 1st or 2nd level divine king realm expert. The wind and thunder surged for 3 days before the divine power and divine blood in Ji Tianqing's body gradually calmed down. The golden divine dragon hovering in the sky and the dazzling golden light that illuminated a radius of 10,000 miles also gradually dissipated. At this moment, he finally ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. I've finally broken through to the 7th-degree realm. I'm one step closer to recovering to the divine king realm. Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with lightning as he muttered to himself calmly. At this moment, Yun Yao and Ji Ku flew over and congratulated him joyfully. Tianqing, you've finally broken through successfully. Brother Tianqing, from today onwards, you're an upper-level divine lord. I reckon that under the divine king realm, almost no one is your match, right? Obviously, the commotion caused by Ji Tianqing's breakthrough was too great, so it woke up Yun Yao and Ji Ku who were cultivating. The two of them had come to his side long ago and did not disturb him. It was only until he completed his breakthrough and ended his cultivation that the two of them dared to show themselves. Ji Tianqing looked at the two of them gently. After sizing up Ji Ku, he revealed a gratified expression. Ku, you've also broken through to the 2nd-level divine lord realm. Ji Ku nodded and said with some shame, speaking of which, eldest senior sister and I went into seclusion at the same time, but she broke through 2 years earlier than me. My talent and aptitude are still inferior to eldest senior sister. Yin Yao smiled and shook her head gently to comfort Ji Ku. Ji Tianqing also explained, Ku, you don't have to worry about this. Yao Yao had fused with 6 god pearls, which was equivalent to the reincarnation of goddess Yaoguang. What she cultivated was the secret arts of her previous life, so of course she would be unimpeded. You, on the other hand, have inherited the legacy of the divine bird phoenix. You have the talent and aptitude to become a divine king. However, you are not the reincarnation of the phoenix after all. You still need to study and comprehend all kinds of divine abilities and ultimate arts. Naturally, it will take more time. Obviously, this was the fundamental difference between Yun Yao and Ji Ku. After hearing his explanation, Ji Ku was finally relieved. After the three of them chatted for a while, Yun Yao asked with concern, Tianqing, where are we now? Is everyone in danger? Ji Tianqing playfully said, when we were in the god-burying mountain range, we exterminated 2 of Grand Prince Lian's minions, causing a great commotion. Now that we are heading south, we are in the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom. However, we have been safe and sound all this time. The situation is just as I expected. Grand Prince Lian has been defeated repeatedly, so he doesn't dare to act rashly anymore. However, he must have set up an inescapable net in the dark, waiting for the critical moment to give us a fatal blow. Ji Ku frowned and asked worriedly, Big Brother Tianqing, since you know that Grand Prince Lian is very powerful, he must have set up an inescapable net in the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom. So, are we still going south? Why don't we change our direction and avoid Grand Prince Lian's ambush or hide? Yun Yao had the same question. She knew Ji Tianqing well. He was not someone who would cause trouble for no reason. If they could avoid Grand Prince Lian's ambush, they would be able to reduce unnecessary trouble and danger. Since he insisted on heading south and did not hide, there must be a reason. As expected, Ji Tianqing explained, Grand Prince Lian and I are irreconcilable enemies. Even if I am willing to forgive him, he will not let me go. As long as he is alive, he will not stop his revenge. My destination is the imperial capital of the great Yan Empire. The other divine kingdoms are too weak. They don't know much about the Northern Heaven region, let alone the boundless Heaven continent. I can only find the answer in the Great Yan Empire's capital. However, Grand Prince Lien's identity is special. He comes from the Great Yan Empire's capital and has forces and claws in several divine kingdoms. If I don't deal with him in the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom, he will still take revenge when I reach the Great Yan Empire's capital. Yun Yao and Ji Ke understood immediately. Ji Tianqing did not hide because he wanted to get rid of Grand Prince Lien as soon as possible. He did not want Grand Prince Lien to pester him when he reached the Great Yan Empire's capital in the future. Alright, you two continue to cultivate. I'll go check out the situation outside. It has been so long. Grand Prince Lien should have made his move. Also, I have to find a chance to fight and see if the Bloody Flame Sacred Tree will grow because of this. After that, Yun Yao and Ji Ke stayed in the distorted spacetime and continued to cultivate in seclusion. Ji Tianqing left the Divine Tower. Swoosh! A white light flashed, and Ji Tianqing appeared in the secret chamber. He put away the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda and stepped out of the secret chamber. The meeting hall was empty. Lin Shui, Shui Huan, Zhen Hong, and the others were still in seclusion to heal and cultivate. Hence, Ji Tianqing went to the control room of the divine worship. Left Emissary Jin and Right Emissary Blood Dragon were driving the divine worship and chatting in low voices. When they saw Ji Tianqing, they were shocked and quickly stood up to salute him. Ji Tianqing waved his hand, gesturing for them to dispense with the formalities and asked, "Where are we now? Did you find anything unusual during this time?" Left Emissary Jin quickly reported, "Young Master, we are in the southern part of the Sky Fire County, in the Sky Fire Lake region. From the map, this region has a radius of 50 million miles, and there are thousands of lakes of various sizes scattered around. Other than the lakes, there are also swamps and jungles. This is the forbidden area of the Sky Fire County, and there are many powerful divine beasts and demon beasts here." Left Emissary Jin briefly introduced the location and the basic situation of the Sky Fire Lake region. Blood Dragon Right Emissary added, "Since we entered the Raging Flame Divine Country, Grand Prince Lien has ceased all activities and hasn't launched a sneak attack. During this time, apart from encountering attacks from divine beasts and vicious beasts, there have been no abnormalities." Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. He sat on the divine jade chair and closed his eyes in silence for a long time. Left Emissary Jin and Right Emissary Blood Dragon sensed that he was releasing a powerful invisible divine sense to explore the situation within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. An invisible pressure also caused the two of them to be secretly surprised and feel reverence in their hearts. The two looked at each other and secretly transmitted their voices. "Old Jin, do you feel that young Master Tianqing seems to have become stronger again?" "Nonsense, how could I not feel it? I bet that young Master Tianqing definitely made a breakthrough during this seclusion. It can't be, right? He has only been in seclusion for 20 days, and he made another breakthrough. Isn't this too unreal? How could there be such a monstrous god in this world? Is young Master an ordinary god? Young Master's previous strength was already very powerful. Now that he has made another breakthrough, Grand Prince Lien is completely done for." Chapter 31-26. Just as Left Emissary Jin and Blood Dragon Right Emissary were communicating via voice transmission, Ji Tianqing opened his eyes. He glanced at the two of them and sighed softly. "It seems that I have to teach you two a few detection skills." Sigh. Left Emissary Jin was overjoyed and exclaimed with an excited expression of disbelief, "Really? Thank you for your guidance, young master." He thought to himself, "How powerful is young Master Tianqing? Just a few skills can benefit me for the rest of my life. This is simply a pleasant surprise, a great opportunity." Blood Dragon Right Emissary was also full of excitement and joy. But he quickly calmed down. Thinking that Ji Tianqing's words had a hidden meaning, he grabbed the excited left emissary Jean. Cough cough. Old Jean, don't be excited, young master has something to say. Left emissary Jean calmed down and looked at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes. Young master, please speak. Ji Tianqing shook his head with a chuckle and said, let Blood Dragon explain to you. Left emissary Jean vaguely understood something and turned to look at Blood Dragon right emissary. Blood Dragon right emissary said awkwardly, young master means that we are being followed, but we haven't been able to find anything unusual. Left emissary Jean suddenly understood, and his face was also full of embarrassment. He smiled and said, young master, our strength is low, and we didn't find anything unusual in time. We almost made a big mistake. After that, he said seriously, young master, where are the people who followed us? They must be very strong, right? Since we have found them, let's attack decisively and kill them. Ji Tianqing said calmly, they are to our side, in the southeast direction. There are only 2 of them, both middle-level divine lords, and they are a little weaker than you. Left emissary Jean and Blood Dragon right emissary fell silent, feeling more and more embarrassed. If the other party was stronger than them, it was understandable that they didn't notice them. But the other party was weaker than them, and they didn't notice anything unusual. This shouldn't be. But the 2 of them asked themselves, they had been vigilant during this period of time and did not neglect their duties. Seeing the self-blame in their eyes, Ji Tianqing comforted them. You don't have to blame yourselves too much. Those 2 middle divine lords have mastered a profound concealment divine ability. They should be the forces under Prince Lien's command that were responsible for investigating and gathering information. Now, I'll teach you a detection divine ability. Go to the secret chamber and study it well. After that, he waved his hand and shot out 2 balls of 5-colored divine light, which flew in front of the left emissary Jean and the right emissary of the Blood Dragon. The 2 of them did not immediately accept the divine light. Instead, they asked curiously, young master, if we go to the secret room to cultivate in seclusion, who will pilot the divine worship? Young master, aren't we going to deal with the 2 fellows following us as soon as possible? Ji Tianqing waved his hand and explained, don't worry and go cultivate. I have my own arrangements. The 2 of them immediately understood that Ji Tianqing wanted to control the divine battleship. Furthermore, he was going to personally take care of those 2 middle divine lords. The left emissary Jean and the Blood Dragon right emissary were relieved. They each took the 5-colored divine light in front of them and entered the secret chamber to cultivate. Ji Tianqing took control of the divine battleship. He easily steered the divine battleship, maintaining its direction and speed as it flew south at a moderate pace. He secretly released his divine sense to observe the 2 divine lords in the southeast direction. They were 2 skinny middle-aged divine clan members wearing white robes. Their hairstyles and appearances were somewhat similar. They could be brothers, or they could be father and son. Both of them were 5th-level divine lords, but they relied on special divine abilities to conceal their auras. Moreover, the 2 of them merged with the white sea of clouds and flashed like phantoms. They were actually able to keep up with the speed of the divine battleship. After confirming that there were no other people following them within a radius of 30,000 miles, Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a sneer. He began to move. Under his control, the divine battleship that was flying smoothly suddenly shook a few times. Then, it desperately accelerated and flew south without regard for anything else. The 2 divine lords who were secretly following them were stunned when they suddenly saw this scene. Immediately, their expressions changed and they sent a voice transmission to warn, not good, we've been discovered. Quickly chase, we can't let that divine battleship escape. Quickly send a message to the sect master and let the others join forces to intercept. This is the heavenly fire dual lake. Once the divine battleship escapes, it'll be very hard to find it again. Hence, the two divine lords did not care about hiding anymore and desperately accelerated to chase after the divine battleship. At the same time, a divine lord sent out a communication jade slip to report the situation to the sect master and request for the other's assistance. Time trickled by. The two divine lords were indeed formidable. No matter how fast the divine battleship was, they kept on following closely and were not shaken off. Even though their divine power was greatly depleted and their whereabouts were completely exposed. But they were very excited and agitated in their hearts. Because they understood that when that divine battleship fled desperately, it proved that the people inside the divine battleship had a guilty conscience and were afraid of being intercepted. This also proved that the people inside the divine battleship were all seriously injured and had not recovered until now. Furthermore, the sect master also sent back a communication jade slip, expressing his approval of their actions. The sect master also issued an order to let the other 8 teams and 500 elite disciples form an encirclement around the heavenly fire dual lake. After a few hours at most, the encirclement would close in and complete the encirclement. At that time, Tianqing and the others would be like turtles in a jar. They would also be able to complete Prince Lian's mission of probing the situation of Tianqing and the others. If Tianqing and the others were seriously injured, then they would have made a great contribution. Prince Lian would definitely turn out in full force and take advantage of the situation to kill Tianqing and the others. Even if Tianqing and the others were not injured, their combat power would still be formidable. They would not fight head-on and would retreat after probing for a while. Of course. From the divine battleship's reaction, Tianqing and the others were definitely not in good condition. If they were in peak condition, why would they speed up and escape after discovering that they were being followed? They would definitely attack aggressively and kill the two divine lords on the spot. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours had passed. The two divine lords gave it their all and followed behind the divine battleship from the beginning to the end, keeping the distance within 500 kilometers. Both of them were so tired that they were panting. They were completely exhausted. However, when they saw that the divine battleship's flames were weakening and its speed was getting slower and slower, they could only grit their teeth and persevere. Hold on a little longer. The encirclement will close soon. Yes. The other 8 teams and 500 elite disciples are almost here. The sect master is also here personally. As expected. Another hour later, the encirclement was finally closed. Dazzling divine light appeared in front of the divine battleship, to the left and to the right. At least 4 teams and 8 middle-level divine lords had rushed over. Above a lake with a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers, 10 divine lords had closed in on the divine battleship. And at this moment, the divine battleship appeared to be even more panicked. After circling in the sky once, it actually burst into resplendent flames and charged toward the southeast. From the looks of it, Tianqing and the others were going to use all their strength to break out of the encirclement. When the 10 divine lords saw this, they looked as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Their faces were filled with mocking smiles. Chapter 31-27. They had surrounded the divine battleship at the heavenly fire lake to test the strength of Tianqing and the others. From the beginning to the end, the divine battleship's reaction had revealed one thing. The people in the divine battleship were very weak. They didn't have enough confidence and didn't want to fight head-on. They only wanted to escape from the pursuit. What this meant was self-evident. When the divine battleship rushed to the southeast, the 10 divine lords all looked smug and expectant. They immediately used their divine powers and joined forces to stop the divine battleship. Swoosh! Swoosh! Dozens of 1,000-foot-long sword radiances, saber radiances, and ice and fire shadows poured down like a flood, drowning the divine battleship. The 3 divine lords in the southeast took out their divine weapons like divine swords, sabers, cauldrons, and wheels and attacked the divine battleship. They didn't want to destroy the divine battleship, but they wanted to stop it and trap it there. Bam! 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 Boom! Boom! A deafening sound exploded above the sea of clouds and spread for thousands of miles. The divine battleship dodged more than half of the divine powers. They passed through the white sea of clouds and landed in the lake below. Instantly, a 1,000-foot-tall wave rose in the lake, splashing water that covered the sky. More than a dozen secret arts and divine artifacts hit the divine warship. The divine battleship was on the verge of collapsing and was sent flying dozens of miles away. The saber radiances and sword shadows also exploded, turning into thousands of divine light fragments and scattering in the sea of clouds. Seeing this, the 10 divine lords were even more certain that their opponents were at the end of their rope. They became more excited and expectant. They used all their divine powers and started another round of attacks. All kinds of saber radiances, sword radiances, divine powers, and divine weapons flew in the sky, chasing the divine battleship. Although the divine battleship didn't dare to face the attacks head-on, it could keep calm and avoid the attacks. Occasionally, there were attacks that it couldn't avoid, but the divine battleship relied on its strong defense to withstand them. Of course, after the two sides fought for a while, the divine battleship also started its counterattack. He continued to fire the divine cannons and shot out beams of divine power at the Sir Gods. The two sides fought above the lake, as if they had forgotten the passage of time. Very quickly, an hour passed. The divine warship was in a sorry state. The light shield on its surface was also flickering. It had been trying its best to block and avoid the attacks, and had tried to break out of the encirclement many times. However, its power was still lacking by a bit. He would always be stopped by the combined efforts of several divine lords at the crucial moment. Of course, in the eyes of the 10 Sir Gods, this was the result of them risking their lives, fighting a bloody battle, and risking their lives to stop him. After all, there were quite a few Sir Gods who had suffered serious injuries. Everyone's divine power was greatly depleted, and they were long exhausted. Meanwhile, Raging Flame Royal City, in a dazzling palace. Prince Lien was still sitting upright in the pool of divine liquid in the same secret room filled with divine light, recuperating from his injuries. At this time, the Lien heir came knocking again. The stone door of the secret room lit up and made a soft sound. Prince Lien stopped circulating his internal energy to treat his injuries. He opened his eyes and looked at the door, frowning in displeasure. He waved his hand and opened the stone door of the secret chamber. Lien heir quickly walked into the secret chamber. "What's the matter?" Prince Lien asked in a dignified tone. Lien heir bowed and saluted. He quickly reporting to your highness, just now the Flying Cloud sect master sent a jade slip to report 2 pieces of good news. Prince Lien's eyes flashed, and his heartbeat sped up. He held his breath and asked, "Nya Feiyan? What good news could he have?" Although he guessed that it had something to do with Ji Tianqing, he was also looking forward to it. He had to remain calm and dignified, and not lose his composure. The Lien heir answered truthfully, "An hour ago, the Flying Cloud sect master sent a message saying that the divine warship Tianqing was on discovered that the elders of the Flying Cloud sect were following it, so it sped up and fled. Those 2 elders chased for a few hours and tried their best to not be shaken off by the divine warship. The Flying Cloud sect master decisively ordered all the elders and elite disciples to surround the divine warship at the heavenly fire Lien Lake." Hearing this, Prince Lien frowned and coldly said with a dignified expression, "What kind of good news is this? Is that old bastard Nya Feiyan's brain flooded with water?" This prince repeatedly told him to keep an eye on that divine warship and keep track of its whereabouts. I didn't expect that in the end, he still went against this prince's orders and was so blinded by greed. Tianqing is so cunning. He obviously showed weakness and ran away. It must be a scheme. Prince Lien had suffered so many losses, and he hated Ji Tianqing to the bone, so he understood this very well. His first reaction was that this was a trap. The Lien heir saw that he was angry and hurriedly comforted him. "Prince, please calm down. How could the Flying Cloud sect master dare to go against your orders? He just wanted to share your burdens and carry out the mission you gave him before. He wanted to find out the real situation of Tianqing and the others." Prince Lien frowned and stopped criticizing him. He said in a low voice, "Continue, what's the second piece of good news?" The Lien heir sighed in relief and continued, "An hour ago, the 10 elders of the Flying Cloud sect finally surrounded the divine worship. At first, the divine worship was very anxious to break out of the encirclement. After failing to escape, the divine worship appeared calm and collected. It resisted the attacks of the 10 elders while looking for an opportunity to escape. It even looked for an opportunity to counterattack. After an hour of fighting, the divine worship strength was greatly reduced, and the 10 elders were all injured. Prince Lien listened silently. After the Lien heir finished, he said calmly, "If the divine worship kept running away, it would be too fake. It must be a scheme. No matter how injured Tianqing and the others were, they wouldn't have been bullied by the 10 elders of the Flying Cloud sect." From the divine worship's reaction, they were indeed heavily injured. At first, it should have been Tianqing's companions controlling the divine worship. After being frightened, they only wanted to escape. Later, the divine worship calmed down and started to counterattack and break out of the encirclement in an orderly manner. It should have been Tianqing personally overseeing it. The Lien heir timely flattered, "Your Highness is indeed a divine strategist. You can plan a strategy from thousands of miles away." Prince Lien ignored his words and continued to ask, "What's Nia Feiyan's next plan? Has that bastard Tianqing shown himself? How are their injuries?" The Lien heir quickly answered, "According to the time, the Flying Cloud sect should have completed their encirclement. The Flying Cloud sect master personally led 20 elders and 500 elite disciples to attack the divine worship together. This is only to test the situation. If Tianqing and the others are weak, the Flying Cloud sect will have a chance to kill them. If Tianqing and the others are still stubborn, the Flying Cloud sect will retreat in time and continue to follow the divine worship." Prince Lien thought for a while and nodded. "Nia Feiyan isn't too stupid. He knows when to advance and when to retreat. If he can find out the true situation of that bastard, it will be good news. This prince's encirclement plan can also be realized ahead of time. Pass down my orders to encourage Nia Feiyan. If he performs this service, this prince will reward him handsomely." Chapter 31-28. The sun was setting in the west and the afterglow was like blood. In the sky above the lake, the 10 Sur gods were still desperately attacking the divine battleship. After close to 2 hours of fighting, the battle spread to a radius of a few thousand miles. In the sky above the region, the sea of clouds was empty. The lake below also had huge waves that were 1,000 feet high and mist filled the sky. There were billions of living beings in the lake, but they were also affected. Countless fish and water creatures were killed by the aftershocks of the divine power. The 10 Sur gods were covered in blood and they looked miserable. Their divine power was almost depleted. There were many dents on the surface of the divine battleship. The divine light shield was also full of cracks and its light was dim. Originally, the 10 Sur gods could not hold on any longer. However, when they saw the divine battleship weakening and that it was difficult to break through, they gritted their teeth and held on, encouraging each other. "Everyone, don't relax. The divine battleship is obviously weakening. The other party is just a paper tiger. Don't be afraid. It's time to make a contribution. As long as we can stall this divine battleship, we will have made a great contribution. Looking at the time, the sect master and the others will be here soon. Everyone, hold on a little longer. With their tenacious willpower and the belief that they wanted to make a contribution, the 10 Sir Gods continued to hold on. In the divine battleship that seemed to be weak and in a sorry state, Ji Tianqing sat in the control room and controlled the divine battleship to do all kinds of things. Zhen Hong stood to the side with a calm expression. He secretly used his divine perception to observe the situation on the battlefield. Lin Shui had her hands on her hips and stared angrily at Ji Tianqing. She looked furious. As for Sir God Blood Illusion, he stood to the side quietly with an expression that said, "Just pretend that I don't exist." When the divine battleship was being attacked, the three of them were awakened. When they came to the control room, they saw Ji Tianqing having a lot of fun. With Lin Shui's bad temper, she wanted to control the divine battleship and kill the 10 Sir Gods instantly. However, she could not persuade Ji Tianqing and had endured until now. "Kid, how long are you going to play?" Lin Shui stared angrily at Ji Tianqing and asked in a deep voice. Ji Tianqing replied casually, "Soon. In a quarter of an hour at most, the big fish will take the bait." Shui Lin frowned and said unhappily, "Do you have to put in so much effort to deal with these small fries?" Ji Tianqing smiled. "It's precisely because they're small fries that we have to put in some effort to lure them into the trap. Otherwise, it would be just like the past 20 days. They have been following us in the dark and they don't even have the guts to make a move." Shui Lin hesitated for a moment and said angrily, "Then don't use my godly battleship as bait. Take a look for yourself. Look at what you've done to my divine ship. If you want to bait them, why don't you use yourself as bait?" Ji Tianqing couldn't help but roll his eyes as he explained, "If we don't show ourselves and hide in the divine ship, they won't be able to figure out what's going on. Only then will they fall for it. Don't you think it would be too fake if I appeared with my hair disheveled and covered in blood as bait? Would those people be fooled? I'm afraid he's running even faster, right?" Shui Lin was speechless. She could only stare at him but didn't know what to say. Finally, the most difficult 15 minutes passed. Dozens of balls of divine light appeared in the sky from all directions. They were all rushing over like shooting stars. Swoosh! 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 A series of air-piercing sounds rang out. Hundreds of immortals arrived in a grandiose manner and stopped in the sky above the lake. The leader was a white-bearded old man dressed in gray linen clothes. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being. This person held a silver horsetail whisk in his hand and wore black cloth boots on his feet. He stood proudly in the sky. There were also 10 immortal lords in purple robes. They were of different shapes and sizes. They formed a circle in the sky. Behind every 2 immortal lords in purple robes, there were hundreds of immortal realm experts in armor. There were a total of 500 experts. They were all elites of 7th level immortal realm and above. With such a grand formation surrounding the divine worship, the atmosphere between heaven and earth immediately became somber. The 10 exhausted and blood-soaked immortal lords saw this scene and their blood boiled with excitement. Many people heaved a sigh of relief. A few immortal lords even shed tears of excitement and cheered excitedly. "Lord Sect Master, you're finally here. Fortunately, we did not disappoint you. We've stalled the enemy here." The white-bearded old man holding the horsetail whisk was the sect master of the Flying Cloud sect, Nya Feiyun. He glanced at the divine ship in the sky and looked at the 10 immortal lords with fervent eyes. He said in a booming voice, "Elders, the Flying Cloud sect is proud of all of you. I'll remember your contributions today. I'll definitely reward you after this. Moreover, I'll report this to the young prince after this. There will be great rewards then." When the 10 immortal lords heard this, they were instantly excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. It was as if all their previous fatigue and injuries had been swept away. Nya Feiyun waved his hand and said with a peaceful expression, "Elders, please withdraw and recuperate from your injuries first. I'll leave the rest to them. The 10 immortal lords could not hold on any longer. They quickly acknowledged the order and retreated to the edge of the battlefield to take divine elixirs to heal their injuries. Then, Nia Feiyun looked at the divine ship and shouted, "Tianqing and his accomplices, listen up. I, Nia Feiyun, am here with the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect. I order you to lay down your arms and surrender immediately. Otherwise, the Flying Cloud sect will do our best to kill all of you here. I advise you to surrender without putting up a fight. Don't make a mistake." The majestic voice reverberated in the sky and it was deafening. The 500 over disciples of the Flying Cloud sect heard this and their blood boiled with pride. However, there was no reaction from the divine ship. In the cockpit of the divine ship, Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion, and Zhen Hong looked at Ji Tianqing and asked questions. "Young master, what should we do now?" "Young man, the people of the Flying Cloud sect are all here. The game should be over, right?" "Young master, they have the advantage in numbers. Should we adopt a positional battle? A siege? A breakout battle? Or a chase battle?" Under the gaze of the three of them, Ji Tianqing said slowly, "Don't be fooled by the Flying Cloud sect master's aggressive aura. In fact, he has been feeling guilty since I did not show up. He is so arrogant because he wants to test our strength. Once we charge out, the Flying Cloud sect will definitely disperse and the old man will run away with his tail between his legs." Sir God Blood Illusion immediately creased his eyebrows and said worriedly, "Then what should we do? Should we continue to act weak? Pretend to run away and lengthen the battle line before killing them one by one?" Ji Tianqing waved his hand and chuckled, "Your idea is not bad but it is too troublesome. This monarch has been acting for so long, just to lure them out, and then catch them all in one fell swoop." Lin Shui and Sir God Blood Illusion creased their eyebrows and looked confused. Ji Tianqing did not say anything else. After he said that, he left the divine ship. "Don't just stand there. Get ready to kill." Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 31-29. Nia Feiyun held the horsetail whisk in his hand and looked at the divine warship with a proud expression. On the surface, he looked very confident and had a card up his sleeve. But in reality, his heart was also hanging in the air, waiting for the final answer. And the elders and disciples of the Flying Cloud sect were all infected by Nia Feiyun's aura. Everyone believed that the divine warship had been damaged, and Tianqing and his companions were also arrows at the end of their flight, turtles in a jar. The shocking merit of capturing or killing Tianqing belonged to none other than them. Everyone held divine weapons and eyed the divine warship covetously. Just waiting for the order of the sect master, everyone would swarm forward and tear the divine warship to pieces. But at this moment, swoosh! Divine light flashed, and a white figure appeared above the divine warship. Everyone's eyes were focused on that figure. It was a handsome black-haired youth wearing a white robe with cloud patterns. He was in high spirits, and his entire body was suffused with powerful divine might. He looked unscathed, and his essence, energy, and spirit were very full. He was clearly in peak condition. How did he look injured and weak at all? Seeing this scene, many elders and disciples were stunned. Nia Feiyun also narrowed his eyes, and his pupils constricted. He had a bad feeling in his heart. He's Tianqing. His appearance, bearing, and divine power aura all match. It's him. But isn't he seriously injured and weak? Why is he so high-spirited? Could it be that he's deliberately pretending to be strong and bluffing? Or maybe he's been acting before, and we've all been deceived by him. Thinking of this, Nia Feiyun was secretly vigilant. Of course, he couldn't just leave. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to complete Grand Prince Lien's mission and would lose face. He had to attack to test the other party's strength. At the same time, Ji Tianqing opened his mouth to speak. He ignored the 500 elite disciples and his gaze fell on Nie Feiyin. He said with a light smile, "After waiting for so long, you're finally all here. For more than half a month, the Flying Cloud sect has been following me. Today, it's time to teach Grand Prince Lian a lesson." Hearing him say so, Nie Feiyin's eyes flickered with a cold light, and his mind was also pondering and analyzing, was Ji Tianqing bluffing to deliberately scare him? Or was he about to give a fatal blow? Nie Feiyin was helpless. He could not see through Ji Tianqing. He could only maintain his calm, and said in a cold tone, "Kid, I've long been used to the tricks of the real and the false. It doesn't matter if you're really injured or not. Since I've turned out in full force and surrounded you here, I definitely won't let you go. Now that you're a famous expert in both divine kingdoms, I'll give you a chance. As long as you allow yourself to be captured, this seat can hand you over to the little prince to deal with. At the very least, this seat can preserve some of your dignity and decency." Ji Tianqing immediately sneered and said, "Haha. You guys really don't understand this monarch. Now that things have come to this, you still want to probe this monarch's background? It was useless. It's time to end this." After saying that, he stopped talking nonsense with Nie Feiyin. He formed a divine seal with both hands and directly used his trump card. Heaven-destroying sword formation. In the next moment, he drew upon the power of the stars in outer space and condensed 20,000 divine swords that rained down like meteors. Swoosh! 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 The sky within a radius of 10,000 miles was covered by the dazzling meteor shower. Before the sword radiance arrived, a violent sword intent that could suppress and crush everything came crashing down from the sky. More than 500 disciples of the Flying Cloud sect subconsciously looked up at the sky. Seeing the sword radiance that covered the sky, everyone's expression changed, and deep worry and fear appeared in their eyes. Nie Feiyin's expression also changed, and he exclaimed in his heart, "D****. He's going to use that sword formation again to seal off the area within a radius of 10,000 miles, is he trying to prevent us from escaping? Is he trying to kill us all? D****. He was indeed faking it before, and his injuries have already healed." At this moment, Nie Feiyin did not need to test the waters to guess the answer. He stepped back subconsciously and shouted, "Get out of my way! Retreat! Retreat!" Upon hearing his command, the 20 elders and 500 disciples were clearly stunned. Many of them were still in shock, and it was obvious that they did not react in time. Previously, the sect master was still very aggressive and full of divine might, seeming very confident. Why did he panic in the blink of an eye and even ask everyone to retreat? Even if Tianqing's injuries had recovered slightly, he should not be so terrifying, right? Although most of them were stunned, they still followed Nie Feiyin's order and quickly retreated. However, they were too slow. In the next moment, the huge divine swords that covered the sky descended and covered a radius of 3,000 miles. Whoosh! 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 In just a breath's time, 20,000 divine swords formed a sword net and sealed off the entire area. Nie Feiyin and more than 500 disciples and elders did not manage to escape. The crowd was a little flustered. The disciples' formation was messed up. Some were hesitating, and some were running away. Nie Feiyin's heart sank, and he realized that the situation was not good. He quickly shouted, "Stop! Everyone, get into a battle formation and defend with all your might." Those disciples who were at a loss for what to do were once again astonished. What the hell? Was the sect leader drunk too much? Just now, he told them to run away, and now he's telling them to get into a defensive formation. Although they were muttering in their hearts, these elite disciples still carried out their orders loyally. At this moment, the divine worship in the skies suddenly disappeared. Swoosh! 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 3 figures appeared in the sky. They were Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion, and Zhenhong. A great battle broke out. Ji Tianqing controlled the Sky Destroyer sword formation and used 10,000 divine swords to kill the disciples of the Cloud sect. Lin Shui dragged the long and narrow demon blade and created a blood-red storm that engulfed countless disciples of the Cloud sect. Sir God Blood Illusion also used his ultimate skill and released a divine power that could destroy heaven and earth. Zhenhong entered a frenzied state and transformed into a 1,000-foot-tall dragon-blooded war goddess. He rampaged through the crowd and started a massacre. Swoosh! 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 Boom! Boom! 3,000 miles of heaven and earth were suddenly filled with colorful divine light and became chaotic. Endless sword radiance shuttled back and forth, sword radiance intertwined with each other, and divine powers collided with each other. There was a loud bang that shook the 9 heavens. The battle had just broken out, and in less than 10 breaths, the Cloud sect suffered heavy casualties. Close to 100 disciples died tragically under the sword formation and the attacks of Ji Tianqing and company. Their corpses were not intact. Dozens of disciples were severely injured. Their limbs were severed and blood splattered everywhere. Even those elders who had the strength of a middle-level divine lord could not escape the fate of being severely injured and covered in blood. This scene made the disciples of the Cloud sect tremble in fear, and a thick fear rose in their hearts. They finally understood. They had been tricked. The divine worship was acting previously and pretending to be very weak. It wanted to lure the Cloud sect into attacking first. Today, the Cloud sect might be completely wiped out. Nie Feiyin had long guessed this and was mentally prepared. His original plan was to find out more about Ji Tianqing's strength, and then decisively retreat and flee. But now that things had come to this, he realized that he had thought too simply. Ji Tianqing's methods and strength far exceeded his imagination. Chapter 3130. Within the heaven-vanquishing sword formation with a radius of 3,000 miles. 7-colored divine light shrouded heaven and earth. A storm that could destroy heaven and earth raged. Blood rain flew everywhere. Tragic cries rose and fell. Deafening loud noises lingered on incessantly. Even though Nie Feiyin and a few elders joined forces and desperately intercepted Ji Tianqing, there were still 10 elders who also besieged Lin Shui and Godlord Blood Illusion without regard for their own safety. But they could not stop Ji Tianqing and Lin Shui at all, let alone stop them from going on a killing spree. With every breath that passed, there were several flying Cloud sect disciples who died tragically under the blade light and sword shadows. They were either decapitated or turned into a rain of blood that filled the sky. Even their divine sparks were also minced into pieces. Such a tragic scene made Nie Feiyin and the rest horrified and terror-stricken. Their hearts were also filled with grief, indignation, and despair. However, they could only watch helplessly but were powerless to stop it. Wanting to bring the disciples to break through the sword formation and escape this place also became an extravagant hope. Unknowingly, 100 breaths of time passed. 90% of the 500 elite disciples were slaughtered. Only 40 over people were still alive. But they were also covered in blood and covered in wounds. Close to half of the 20 middle-level Godlord elders were also killed. There were only 11 people left alive. Including Nie Feiyin, everyone was in a miserable state with weak abilities. Now that things had come to this, Flying Cloud sect's defeat was already a foregone conclusion. There was no possibility of survival. Looking at the sky filled with blood rain, the lake surface that was dyed red under his feet, and the miserable people around him, Nie Feiyin's heart was truly like dead ashes. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Ha 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 ha, it's all my fault. Even though little prince repeatedly warned me and I was sufficiently cautious, I was still bewitched by him. In my eagerness for quick success and with a fluke heart, I brought the sect's elites out in full force. That's why such a tragedy happened. It's me who harmed the sect's disciples. Tianxing. You goddamn bastard. What a vicious mind and means. Nie Feiyun's voice was hoarse and he muttered with a desolate expression. In the end, it became a sorrowful cry. Even if I die here today, I will never give in. I must die with you. Nie Feiyun's white hair fluttered in the wind, and his whole body emitted a solemn and stirring aura. The surviving elders and disciples of the Flying Cloud sect were all affected by his aura. Their hearts were heavy and sorrowful, and their eyes were red and filled with tears. Even though they were defeated, they had forgotten their pain and were no longer afraid of death. All of them were brave warriors who would die without regrets. Nie Feiyun raised his arms and shouted, "Disciples of the Flying Cloud sect, charge with me. This time, if we don't succeed, we will die trying." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards Ji Tianqing with his horsetail whisk and sword in hand. The 11 elders and more than 40 disciples were also determined to die. They waved their swords and sabers and launched a suicidal charge. Seeing this, Xue Lin couldn't help but frown and whisper, "I didn't expect that old man to have some strength of character. He is a worthy opponent." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and smiled playfully. "No wonder you were always hurt. Fortunately, you met Xue Huan, Old Jin, and Xue Long, otherwise, the Blood Blade sect wouldn't exist." Xue Lin frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "Let's wait and see." Then, he waved the sword of burial of heaven and charged forward. Sword radiance filled the sky as he attacked Nie Feiyun and the others. Xue Lin didn't have the chance to ask any more questions. She dragged the blood blade and charged towards the people of the Flying Cloud sect, stirring up a bloody storm. A fierce battle took place once again. Boom! 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 The light of the divine skills that covered the sky collided fiercely in the sky. Thousands of divine swords poured down like a rain of arrows, accurately assassinating the people of the Flying Cloud sect. Dazzling divine light and blood splattered everywhere. In less than 10 breaths, more than 40 disciples of the Flying Cloud sect were killed. Then, the 11 elders also died one after another. They had been seriously injured, and their strength had decreased greatly. They couldn't even defeat Jin Hong, left emissary Jin, and Xue Long. After another 100 breaths of time, the heaven-shaking and earth-shaking battle gradually stopped. The 11 elders were all dead. The Flying Cloud sect was almost completely annihilated, and only one person was still alive. There was no doubt that it was Nie Feiyun. Ji Tianqing and the others stopped attacking and surrounded Nie Feiyun. Everyone's gaze gathered on him and they sized him up with a strange look. Even though his injuries were even worse than before, and he looked even more miserable than before. But if one observed carefully, they would realize that although his injuries looked terrifying, they weren't fatal. Even Xue Lin, who was careless, felt that something was amiss. This old man actually survived, and he didn't even break an arm or a leg. When he was fighting just now, he looked very brave, but in actual fact, he had been dodging. Sir God Xue Huan quickly reminded him through voice transmission, "Sect Master, Mr. Tianqing saw through the old man's thoughts long ago. Just wait and see." Ji Tianqing put away the sword of burial of heaven, looked at Nie Feiyun with a smile, and asked, "Old man, you lived to the end as you wished, and all your elders and disciples are dead. Now, just tell me what you want to do." Nie Feiyun was seen through, but he didn't feel embarrassed at all. His expression didn't change, and he still looked solemn and tough. He said in a hoarse voice, "Tianqing, although the Flying Cloud sect is your enemy and was ordered to encircle and annihilate you again, the Flying Cloud sect had no choice but to do so. However, the Flying Cloud sect was forced to do so because they had no other choice. They don't have any deep hatred for you. Now, our elders and disciples have died bravely in battle. They are all righteous and loyal warriors. I hope you don't humiliate them. Ji Tianqing nodded and said casually, anyway, they died without an intact corpse and were buried in the lake. How can I humiliate them? Nie Feiyun continued, I made a wrong judgment and gave the wrong order, which led to the death of our elders and disciples. Logically speaking, after making such a huge mistake, should go to hell with the elders and disciples to apologize to them. However, I know very well that taking my own life is a coward's act, and they don't wish to see me kill myself. Moreover, I still have to take care of the surviving disciples and the families of the disciples who died in battle. When they heard that, Ji Tianqing, Sir God Blood Illusion and the others let out a cold smile. Even Lin Shui could tell that something was amiss. She said with disdain, old man, don't you just want Tianqing to spare your life? Even when you're begging for mercy, you can make it sound so righteous, sorrowful and solemn. You're really hypocritical. Nie Feiyun ignored Lin Shui's words and looked at Ji Tianqing calmly. He said, I've lived for over 20,000 years. I've experienced everything in my life, and I've become indifferent to it. As long as you're magnanimous, I'll do my best to help you and follow your lead, to help you achieve your wish. Lin Shui was completely convinced. She pointed at Nie Feiyun and scolded, old man, it's really impressive that you can be so shameless to this extent. Previously, I thought you had a backbone, but I didn't expect you to be even more hypocritical than those who curry favor with those in power. Chapter 31-31. Reality proved that Ji Tianqing had seen through Nie Feiyun's thoughts long ago. And Lin Shui had misjudged Nie Feiyun, thinking that he was a sanctimonious person with integrity. So, Lin Shui was very angry. Ji Tianqing turned to look at Lin Shui and chuckled, fortunately, you met me, otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lin Shui glared at him angrily, unable to refute. Lord Shui Huan quickly comforted her, sect master, you don't have to be so angry. That old man had no choice but to do this in order to survive. This is the way of survival for small sects and experienced people, there is nothing to scold. If he was really a heroic person with integrity, he might not have survived until today. Also, the old man said himself, he has experienced everything in his life. Other than death, he has seen through everything, why would he care about dignity and integrity? Left emissary Jean quickly nodded in agreement and said, sect master, that old man is a smart person, otherwise, how could he become the leader of a sect and coax the disciples? Even if he admitted defeat and begged young Master Tianqing to spare his life, he could have said it so righteously, at least he would not have lost face. If he had not met young Master Tianqing and had Prince Lian as his backer, he might not have done this. But he fell into our hands, if he did not do this, how could he survive? Hearing the two's advice, Lin Shui's anger subsided a lot. But she still glared at Shui Huan, left emissary Jean and Blood Dragon fiercely, scolding with a stern expression, I am warning you, if one day, you become as hypocritical and shameless as that old man, don't blame me for cleaning up the sect. Shui Huan, left emissary Jean and Blood Dragon all shrunk their necks and shook their heads, saying that they did not dare. At this time, Ji Tianqing looked at Nie Feiyun expressionlessly and asked, you are a smart person, I don't need to say any nonsense, I believe you know it. Since you want to live and work for me, what qualifications and abilities do you have? How dare you say that you will help me achieve my wish? Nie Feiyun had long expected him to say this. He explained in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, I know that my strength is lacking. In terms of divine arts and techniques, I'm not worth mentioning in front of you. But this old man is from the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom and has lived here for more than 20,000 years. I have a thorough understanding of the divine kingdom. Even the monarch and Grand Prince Lien don't know as much about this divine nation as I do. Moreover, I'm good at tracking, concealing, and investigating. That's why I created the Flying Cloud sect. In the entire Raging Flame Divine Kingdom, the Cloud sect's ability to gather information was second to none. Moreover, this old man has been working for Prince Lien for a long time, so I know a lot of top-secret information. Young master will definitely be interested. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a cold smile, you're quite scheming. You know where your value lies, that's why you dare to bet that this sovereign will use you. But have you ever thought that Ben Jun has always been frivolous and conceited? If I don't want to use you and just kill you, what are you going to do? As he spoke, a terrifying killing intent burst out from his body and enveloped Nie Feiyan. When Nie Feiyan was attacked by the cold killing intent, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar and his body trembled. But he tried his best to remain calm and said with a calm expression, if I fall into young master's hands, it's natural for this old man to lose his life. It'll be fortunate if I can survive. If young master wants to kill me, this old man is powerless. In any case, this old man has lived for too long and has always been alone. There's nothing to worry about. It doesn't matter if this old man dies, but if young master wants to inquire about Grand Prince Lien's secrets, you'll have to go through a lot of trouble. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a chuckle, you're indeed smarter and better than Prince Lien's other lackeys in judging the situation. But have you thought about it? This sovereign has mastered the soul refining technique. If I kill you and seize your memories, won't I know everything? Nie Feiyan's expression remained unchanged. He bowed and said, young master's methods are heaven-defying, and your foundation is deep. This old man isn't surprised that you've mastered such a method. But there's one thing that young master doesn't know. Since this old man was able to establish the Flying Cloud sect and was placed in an important position by Grand Prince Lien, acting as his informant and scout, there's also a reason. This old man also cultivated a kind of destiny divine ability. At the instant of death, it can wipe out most of the divine soul memories. This way, even if you cast the soul refining technique, you can only obtain some unimportant information. This old man can keep the most crucial secrets. That's why Grand Prince Lien dares to trust and put this old man in an important position. Hearing up to here, Lin Shui, God Lord Blood Illusion, Shen Hong, and the rest exchanged glances, all revealing looks of realization. Only then did everyone understand. No wonder Nie Feiyan had the confidence, daring to beg for mercy and negotiate with Ji Tianqing. Lin Shui was somewhat stifled and muttered to herself, damn old thing, no wonder he's so arrogant. But does he really think that we can't do anything to him? At most, we'll kill him with one blade. We won't be curious about those secrets of his. She originally thought that Ji Tianqing was confident and haughty, and definitely would not be restrained by Nie Feiyan. But she did not expect that Ji Tianqing actually did not get angry, and even nodded his head in agreement. Good. Your calmness and steadiness, this lord admires it very much. In addition, this lord also wants to see what capabilities you have, and how many secrets you've grasped. Today, I'll spare your life and allow you to follow by this lord's side, serving at any time. Seeing Ji Tianqing spare Nie Feiyan, Lin Shui frowned fiercely, very much wanting to open her mouth to stop. Nie Feiyan heaved a sigh of relief as if relieved of a heavy burden. He hurriedly put away his treasured sword and held the horsetail whisk, bowing deeply. Young master is unfathomable to begin with, and your strength is formidable. Also, you have such noble character and unquestionable integrity, and are deeply righteous. This old man truly admires you. Now, this old man increasingly feels that young master's strength, talent, vision, and methods all surpass Grand Prince Lien. Compared to Grand Prince Lien, perhaps you're this old man's wise master. Lin Shui's teeth ached from listening. She repeatedly pursed her lips and said disdainfully, "This flattery is really loud." Just now, he still had the appearance of an otherworldly expert, and in the blink of an eye, he became a lackey. Really makes people. Nia Feiyin pretended not to hear these words, walked towards Ji Tianqing with a calm expression, and bowed once more. This old man, Nia Feiyin, solemnly greets young Master Tianqing. From today onwards, this old servant is young master's servant at your side, at your disposal. After this bow, it meant that he admitted defeat and surrendered, and was willing to follow Ji Tianqing. After getting up, he consciously stretched out his palms and said with a calm expression, "Young master, if you want to cast any spells, talismans, or shackles, please feel free to do so." Obviously, he had long guessed that Ji Tianqing did not trust him. He would definitely use some method, such as using his life as a hostage, in order to control him. Ji Tianqing's eyes turned golden. He stared at Nia Feiyin for a while, and then said, "The purple mark in your soul, is it the talisman that Grand Prince Lien planted to hasten your death?" Nia Feiyin nodded and said, "Young master's eyes are as sharp as torches. That was the revenant god seal planted by Grand Prince Lien more than 20 years ago. It can be detonated with a thought and take this old man's life." Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, "If that's the case, then I don't need to go through so much trouble. I'll just add a little something to the revenant god seal." Chapter 31-32. Upon hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Nia Feiyin was stunned. He didn't understand. What did he mean? Ji Tianqing didn't explain. He formed a seal with both hands and shot out dozens of divine lights into Nia Feiyin's mind. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, the dozens of divine lights formed a walnut-sized golden seal that enveloped the departed soul seal. In just 2 breaths, Ji Tianqing finished casting and retracted his hands. Nia Feiyin was still in a daze. He used his divine sense to sense the seal in his mind. After pondering for a long time, his expression changed. He was extremely shocked. His eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Ji Tianqing with excitement. "Young master, you actually, cut off the connection between Prince Lien and the departed soul seal?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said calmly, "From now on, Prince Lien can no longer control your life and death." What he meant was that from now on, his life and death were in his hands. Nia Feiyin was well aware of this, but he was still surprised and happy. He quickly bowed. It's a miracle that young master could achieve this in just 2 breaths. With regards to young master's methods and abilities, this old man is truly in awe. At this moment, Nia Feiyin felt more and more that joining Ji Tianqing was the wisest choice. It wasn't just because Ji Tianqing's abilities and methods were better than Prince Lien's. More importantly, Prince Lien had always been arrogant because of his noble status. He had always beaten, scolded, and even killed his guards and servants at will. In the outside world, Nia Feiyin had the demeanor of an immortal. But in front of Prince Lien, he could only nod his head and bow, speaking humbly like a lackey. However, Nia Feiyin could see Ji Tianqing's temperament through this short period of contact. Although he was arrogant, he wasn't as ruthless as Prince Lien. At the very least, Ji Tianqing was a merciful and fair ruler. Xue Lin curled her lips and grumbled, "How many times have you flattered in such a short time? Don't you feel ashamed?" This time, Nia Feiyin didn't evade. He bowed to her and said seriously, "Miss, this old man greets you. Although you are somewhat disdainful of this old man's methods, what this old man said just now was from the bottom of his heart. You're young Master Tianqing's companion. You should know better than this old man how powerful young master is, right?" Xue Lin choked and was speechless for a moment. Of course, she couldn't refute. Otherwise, it would mean that she was looking down on Ji Tianqing. After a moment of silence, she said angrily, "Even if that's the case, none of us are flattering like you. You're able to live to this age because of your bootlicking skills, aren't you?" Nie Feiyun didn't get angry. He smiled and said, "If Miss thinks so, then let's take it that way." Then, he greeted Sir God Blood Illusion, Shen Hong, Left Emissary Jean, Blood Dragon and the others. After a simple and awkward exchange of greetings, everyone got to know each other. Ji Tianqing knew that everyone couldn't accept Nie Feiyun as a companion for the time being. It was also awkward standing there. Thus, he waved his hand and ordered, "Don't just stand there. Go clean up the battlefield." Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion and the others hurriedly went to clean up the battlefield and plunder the spoils of war. Ji Tianqing also removed the Sky Destroyer sword formation and stood in the sky with Nie Feiyun, asking him about the situation. "Since you're Prince Lien's confidant, you should know his next plan, right?" Nie Feiyun nodded. "Of course I know." After the incident at the God-burying mountain range, young master's name spread throughout the raging flame divine kingdom. Even the royal family has heard of him. Prince Lien didn't dare to attack rashly and could only gather the power of the 9 great sects to form an encirclement around the divine kingdom. As young master kept going south, the encirclement kept shrinking. Prince Lien's final goal is to complete the encirclement outside the raging flame divine kingdom and have a decisive battle with you. Of course, now that the Flying Cloud sect has been removed, there are only 8 great sects under Prince Lien. Sure enough, it's as I expected. Ji Tianqing nodded and sneered. He isn't my match, and there aren't any top powerhouses under his command that can kill me. In the current situation, he can only do this. There's no other way. Right, what about the powerhouses of the Heavenly Union sect's Raging Flame branch? Did they participate in the encirclement? Nie Feiyun shook his head. No. These 9 great sects were subdued by Prince Lien. Although they work for him, he doesn't trust them completely. The Heavenly Union sect is his true confidant and backer. The powerhouses of the Raging Flame branch stayed in the royal city to protect him and stand by at any time. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and sneered, "So Prince Lien has been hiding in the royal city to recuperate? How are his injuries? How much did he recover?" Nie Feiyun had an awkward expression as he guiltily said, "To tell you the truth, Prince Lien is extremely wary and doesn't completely trust the forces he subdued. Only the 2 sect masters of the Raging Flame branch and a few of his trusted aides knew the location of his seclusion and the progress of his recovery. I don't know his specific situation, but I can judge from the clues that he should still need a month to recover. After all, the 8 great sects will close the encirclement and join hands to kill you in a month. Prince Lien will definitely come in person." Ji Tianqing nodded and muttered, "Even if he can only recover 80% of his injuries in a month, it's still very shocking. It can be seen that he has a lot of resources, divine pills, or the help of a peak divine doctor." Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing asked, "Prince Lien actually has so many forces and supporters in the Raging Flame divine kingdom. Could it be that the royal family isn't afraid? Or could it be that Prince Lien is also related to the royal family?" He recalled the matter of the Blood Flame divine kingdom. Prince Lien intended to help the 5th prince ascend the throne and control the Blood Flame divine kingdom. Thus, he couldn't help but be suspicious of the relationship between Prince Lien and the royal family. Nie Feiyun had an expression of admiration as he cupped his hands and said, "This old man was just about to remind young master, but I didn't expect young master to already have doubts. This old man truly admires you." "That's right." Prince Lien and the Raging Flame royal family had an inexplicable relationship. Although on the surface, they don't have any dealings and are very polite and well-behaved. But this old man has been observing for a dozen years and found many coincidences as well as inexplicable matters. Over time, this old man gradually became convinced that Prince Lien is definitely related to the royal family. Moreover, this old man also investigated and found that before the Raging Flame divine kingdom's ruler ascended the throne a few decades ago, Prince Lien secretly helped him. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing had an answer in his heart. He sneered and said in a playful tone, "So, this prince entering the raging flame divine kingdom is tantamount to sending a sheep into a wolf's den." Chapter 31-33. Not long after, Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, and the others finished cleaning up the battlefield. They collected a large number of spoils. There were hundreds of divine weapons and interspatial rings, as well as thousands of Godhead fragments. Those Godhead fragments were naturally given to Ji Tianqing. As for the divine weapons and interspatial rings, they were given to Ji Tianqing to distribute. During this process, they did not avoid Nie Feiyan. Although those spoils came from Nie Feiyan's disciples, Nie Feiyan consciously retreated to the side and watched silently. His expression did not change. Lin Shui noticed this and despised Nie Feiyan even more. She secretly scolded him for being cold-blooded and heartless. However, Ji Tianqing, Blood Illusion, Zhen Hong, and the others could guess Nie Feiyan's state of mind. No matter how uncomfortable they were, they could not show it at this moment. After all, Nie Feiyan had just joined Ji Tianqing. How could they let Ji Tianqing harbor ill feelings and doubts? Ji Tianqing was not very interested in the divine weapons and interspatial rings. He had already accumulated hundreds of billions worth of cultivation resources. Not only did he have the bloody flame sacred tree, but he also had an endless supply of energy stones from the five elements realm. He, Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and the others would not lack cultivation resources for many years to come. Only quasi-king level and king level divine weapons and treasures could arouse his interest. Therefore, he distributed the divine weapons and interspatial rings equally to Lin Shui, Blood Illusion, Zhen Hong, and the others. This action made everyone very happy and grateful. They accepted the spoils excitedly and could not wait to check their gains. The items in each interspatial ring were different. Therefore, the final gains were all based on luck. Nie Feiyan watched all this silently. Other than the sadness and depression in his heart, he also had a deeper understanding of Ji Tianqing. Extremely shrewd and ruthless, but very tolerant and magnanimous to the people around him, this person will definitely become someone great. His breadth of mind and outlook are far beyond Prince Lien's. This was Nie Feiyan's impression and evaluation of Ji Tianqing. After a while, Lin Shui took out the divine ship. Everyone boarded the divine ship and continued their journey. It was still the left emissary Jin and the right emissary of the Blood Dragon who took turns to steer the divine warship and continued to fly south. The two of them had long refined the divine light that Ji Tianqing had gifted them, and they had grasped the basics of the detection divine ability. What was interesting was that left emissary Jin had a divine art that could strengthen one's consciousness, while Blood Dragon right emissary had an eye technique divine art. The two of them worked together and used their divine abilities to investigate the situation. It was a two-pronged attack, and it was very difficult to miss anything. This discovery made the two of them extremely happy. They secretly admired Ji Tianqing's meticulous thinking. Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion and the rest entered the secret chamber to count their gains. Ji Tianqing and Nie Feiyan stayed in the meeting hall to talk. Ji Tianqing still had a lot of information to learn about the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom and Prince Lien. Old Nie, Prince Lien should have received the news by now, right? How would he react when he found out that the Flying Cloud sect had been completely annihilated? What plans and arrangements would he have for the next step? Furthermore, without the Flying Cloud sect as his eyes, does he still have a backup information channel? Ji Tianqing asked a lot of questions this time, but Nie Feiyan answered in an orderly manner. With the experience of the previous failures, even if Prince Lien is furious, he will quickly calm down. That's because when he found out that the Flying Cloud sect had taken the initiative to attack, he was already furious and expected the Flying Cloud sect to fail. Next, he will definitely strictly order the 8 great sects not to take the initiative to attack, so as to avoid being defeated one by one. Before he has the confidence to kill you, he can only carry out the original plan and let the 8 great sects continue to surround you. As for the information channel, losing the Flying Cloud sect is equivalent to losing an eye, but it's not to the extent of being completely blind. The Divine Blade Union and the Myriad Flow sect are the strongest among the 8 great sections. They also have a large number of scouts and set up intelligence networks in the various counties. The other 6 sects are also deeply rooted in the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom and have close relations with the various sections. They can also gather a lot of information. Ji Tianqing frowned and said in a deep voice, not only that, Prince Lien might have an even more powerful ally who can provide accurate information. Nia Feiyin was startled, but he soon understood what Lin Yun meant and asked, "Young master, are you talking about the Raging Flame royal family?" "That's very possible, we have to guard against it." Ji Tianqing remained silent as he inwardly calculated, although I'm already a high divine monarch and can defeat any of the powerhouses under Prince Lien, he doesn't personally appear in the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom. But he didn't show himself, and only let the 8 great sects attack me together. And he's hiding in the Raging Flame Royal City, holding the Heavenly Fusion sect's Raging Flame branch as his trump card. Even the Raging Flame royal family might become his accomplice. I definitely can't sit still and let the 8 great sects besiege me while being chased by Prince Lien and the Raging Flame branch. I have to think of a way to break the encirclement of the 8 great sections. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing asked, "Old Nye, give this young master a map of the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom and mark the approximate locations of the 8 great sections." Nye Feiyin thought for a moment before nodding. "Okay, please wait a moment." After a short 100 breaths, Nye Feiyin took out a map with 8 circles marked on it. "Young master, the last time this old man received the information was a day ago. That was the approximate location of the 8 great sections. Now that a day has passed, the positions of the 8 great sects must have changed, but it shouldn't be by much." Ji Tianqing took the map and carefully observed it. The 8 circles were connected to form an oval encirclement. And in the northern part of the encirclement was the Heavenly Fire Lake. The southernmost part of the encirclement was about 5 million kilometers north of the Raging Flame Royal City. Ji Tianqing frowned. According to the current situation, the encirclement will close in about half a month. At that time, the 8 great sects will fight us in the central part of the Heavenly Wolf County. Nye Feiyin nodded. "Your estimation is very accurate. This is also Prince Lien's plan." Ji Tianqing continued, "The 8 great sects don't dare to take the initiative to attack. They even want to keep a distance from me. Even if I take the initiative to attack and defeat them one by one, unfortunately, I'm too far away and it's very difficult to accurately find them." Nye Feiyin thought for a moment before trying, "This old man can pretend to be seriously injured and escape. I can send a message to them." Without waiting for him to finish, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "If this method works, we can indeed set up an ambush in advance and eliminate the main forces of a few sections. But Prince Lien is very vigilant and suspicious. He will definitely warn the 8 great sections. If you don't send a message or show yourself, Prince Lien and the 8 great sects will think that you died in battle. Once you send a message, Prince Lien will definitely guess that you've defected." This. Nye Feiyin was speechless and could only remain silent. Ji Tianqing was silent for a long time before he made up his mind. If we want to break the encirclement of the 8 great sects, there is another way. We can take drastic measures and directly destroy their sect and foundation. Chapter 31-34. Nye Feiyin's body stiffened, his face full of shock. "Young master, aren't you being too ruthless?" He was also a smart person, so he naturally knew that Ji Tianqing's method was feasible. Once the headquarters and gates of the 8 great sects were destroyed, the elites of the 8 great sects would definitely lose their will to fight and panic. At that time, Prince Lien's inescapable net would fall apart. But this method was truly too ruthless. The elite forces of the 8 great sects were outside on expeditions, carrying out Prince Lien's mission. Those left at the gates and headquarters were basically the old, weak, sick, disabled, and their family members. Ji Tianqing expressionlessly looked at Nie Feiyun and calmly said, "This monarch isn't an executioner, but I'm also not a good person. You should have a deep understanding of this. Since the 8 great sects want to kill this monarch, how can this monarch be lenient with them? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame them for being loyal to Prince Lien and not making an enemy out of this monarch." Nie Feiyun immediately turned silent and didn't say anything else. Because he clearly knew that Ji Tianqing's method wasn't excessive. This was a life and death struggle, and the winner was king. Who would talk about morality and benevolence? If he had Ji Tianqing's strength and abilities, he would also do the same without hesitation. Thinking of this, Nie Feiyun inwardly sighed. Myriad Flow Sect, Divine Blade Union, and 6 Path Sects, you will soon face a great calamity. This old man wants to help, but is unable to. You're on your own now. At this time, Ji Tianqing handed the map of the Raging Flame Divine Country to Nie Feiyun. You should know where the headquarters and gates of the 8 great sects are located, right? Mark them on the map. Nie Feiyun didn't dare to neglect Ji Tianqing's order and promptly marked them on the map. Soon, he marked out 8 locations on the map. After thinking for a moment, he added 3 more marks. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "Why are there 3 more marks? Could it be that there are 3 sects that are crafty and have 3 burrows?" Young master is wise. Nie Feiyun quickly nodded and explained, the Myriad Flow Sect and the Divine Saber Union are both large sects that have existed for over 10,000 years. Even though they were like all the other sects and had a fixed mountain gate and headquarters. However, they had secretly established a branch many years ago and transferred many elite disciples, resources, and wealth. Among the 6 sects, the Spirit Sword sect also imitated the practice of the Divine Blade Union and the 10,000 Stream sect. However, the Spirit Sword sect was a second-rate sect, and its strength was not as good as the other 2 sections. Thus, it was difficult for them to have a group of elite disciples and elders. Therefore, they secretly built a treasury, and nearly half of their wealth and resources are hidden in that treasury. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing said with a playful smile, "These are the secrets of the major sections." "How do you know so clearly?" "Young master, you must be joking." Nie Feiyun humbly bowed and said, "The other sects may have done the same thing, but this old man doesn't know. The reason why this old man knows about the secret treasure house of the Spirit Sword sect is because many years ago, I had a grudge with the Spirit Sword sect. This old man secretly investigated for many years and finally found the secret treasure house of the Spirit Sword sect. When I was about to lead the sect's powerhouses to attack the treasury, Prince Lien stopped me. At that time, this old man knew that the Spirit Sword sect was the same as our sect, subdued by Prince Lien." Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood. He stared at the map for a few times and decided on the plan. "We will soon leave the Heavenly Fire Lake. The closest sect to us is the Blue Thunder sect. In addition, the headquarters of the Spirit Moon sect, Flying Rainbow sect, and Overlord Pavilion are not too far away from us. The furthest ones are the Spirit Sword sect, the 10,000 Streams sect, and the Divine Blade Union. In that case, let's start with the Blue Thunder sect." Nie Feiyun had no objection. He bowed and said, "As per young master's order, this old man will do his best to fight." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said, "You don't have to participate in the first battle. Go into seclusion and heal your injuries for a few days." Although Nie Feiyun's 4 limbs were intact and he seemed to be able to move freely, his injuries were very serious. However, he was indeed badly injured, and his strength was very weak. It was not easy for him to hold on until now. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, he showed a grateful look and hurriedly bowed to express his gratitude. Then, Nie Feiyun chose a secret room and went into seclusion to heal his injuries. Ji Tianqing went to the cockpit of the divine ship and ordered Left Emissary Jin and Blood Dragon Right Emissary, turn to the southeast and go to the Thunder Sound Mountain. Left Emissary Jin and Blood Dragon Right Emissary both showed a puzzled look. They subconsciously asked, "Young Master, why are we going to the Thunder Sound Mountain? Aren't we going to continue to the south?" Ji Tianqing didn't explain too much. He chuckled and said, "Are you happy to take you to kill people and steal their treasures?" "Of course I'm happy." Left Emissary Jin answered without hesitation. Blood Dragon Right Emissary quietly pulled him and said with a slightly embarrassed expression, "Ahem. We are not bandits, and neither is young Master Tianqing. How can we kill people and steal their treasures? If I'm not wrong, young Master must be taking the initiative to cut off Prince Lian's wings one by one, right?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "That's right." Left Emissary Jin mumbled, "What's the difference?" Ji Tianqing didn't say anything more. He turned and left the cockpit. After he left, Blood Dragon Right Emissary hurriedly pulled Left Emissary Jin and reminded him, "Old Jin, don't forget Master's words. If we become villains who burn, kill, and rob, Master will punish us. So, we can't be so straightforward. We have to be tactful." Left Emissary Jin rolled his eyes. "Isn't that hypocrisy? Just like that old man Nie Feiyun. Don't forget, Master said that if we become like Nie Feiyun, she will punish us too." Ahem. Blood Dragon Right Emissary choked. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Master always talks about punishing us. It's quite scary. Young Master Tianqing is the best. He only gives us benefits and never threatens us. Left Emissary Jin nodded in agreement. Yes. So, following young Master Tianqing is the only way to live a good life. I've gained weight recently. No. I've accumulated a large amount of resources recently, and my strength has more than doubled. The two talked for a while, then stopped and continued to drive the divine ship. 3 days later. In the Thunder Sound Mountain, 4,000,000 miles away from the heavenly fire lake. It was evening. The sun was setting in the west, and the sky was filled with the glow of the sunset. In the depths of the majestic and boundless mountain range, there was a giant mountain that was more than 2,000 feet tall, towering among the other mountains. The white sea of clouds covered half of the mountain. The top of the giant mountain was above the vast sea of clouds. It was like a floating island in the sea of clouds, partly hidden and partly visible. This floating island had a radius of 100 miles. It was man-made and the terrain was flat. On the top of the mountain, there were dozens of splendid palaces. This was the mountain gate of the Blue Thunder sect, where more than 3,000 disciples lived and cultivated. Looking from afar, the Blue Thunder sect was magnificent and ethereal, like an otherworldly paradise. In the next instant, everyone saw an unforgettable scene. The starlight that covered the sky was not a shooting star. Instead, it was 20,000 gigantic swords that were thousands of feet tall. Boom 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 boom. 20,000 giant swords converged into a torrential downpour. They violently slammed into the sect-protecting formation, causing a loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens. The seemingly indestructible protective formation only lasted for an instant before it was blasted into pieces and collapsed on the spot. Ka ka ka, the great defensive array within a radius of 200 miles actually turned into fragments that filled the sky, splashing in all directions. However, the power of the divine swords that filled the sky had yet to dissipate, and they continued to attack downwards. Without the protection of the sect-protecting formation, the Green Thunder sect was extremely weak. Boom boom boom. Another loud explosion that shook the heavens and the earth spread across a radius of 10,000 miles. Dozens of magnificent palaces were blasted into pieces on the spot. The deacons and hundreds of disciples did not have time to dodge or defend themselves. They were directly blasted into pieces. Even the 2,000 feet tall giant mountain was blasted into pieces by the divine giant swords and collapsed into a huge ruin. In just a few breaths, the Green Thunder Sect's mountain gate was destroyed. Not only were the buildings completely destroyed, but the entire giant mountain was also turned into ruins. More than 2,000 disciples and a few deacons had all died without even knowing what had happened. Only a middle-aged deity clan member in a purple robe dashed out of the ruins, covered in blood, and rushed into the sky with disheveled hair. He was the deputy lord of the Green Thunder Sect, an upper-level divine lord at the 7th level of the divine lord realm. Under the attack of the divine swords that filled the sky, he was lucky enough to survive, but he was also scared out of his wits. Looking at the tragic scene around him, he was both angry and frightened. He trembled all over and roared at the sky, "Why? What did our sect do wrong? More than 2,000 disciples, our foundation for thousands of years, our life's work. Haotian, why are you so cruel to send down heaven's punishment to destroy all of this?" Obviously, the vice sect master subconsciously thought that this was a punishment from heaven. If it was not for Haotian's punishment, how could the Green Thunder Sect's mountain gate be destroyed in an instant? How could a few deacons and more than 2,000 disciples be turned into ashes in an instant? Besides Haotian's punishment, who else could create such a miracle? The vice sect master could not figure it out. He was both angry and desperate. At this time, 20,000 giant swords formed a sword array that covered a radius of 1,000 miles. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The giant swords crisscrossed and flew back and forth as fast as lightning, killing everything in their path. The vice sect master had the strength of the 7th firmament realm, but he could not block the thousands of swords. He just held on for a few breaths and was crushed into pieces by the thousands of swords. Even his godhood was shattered. Then, the sky full of giant swords continued to kill for 10 breaths of time. The ruins and mounds of earth formed by the collapse of the giant mountain peak were also crushed into pieces and scattered between heaven and earth. When the heaven punishment sword array dissipated, the land within a radius of 1,000 miles became flat ground. Not even a complete tile was left. Such a scene was as if the Green Thunder Sect had disappeared into thin air. Above the vast sea of clouds, Ji Tianqing, Xue Lin, and the others stood there quietly, watching everything in silence. An entire mountain gate was destroyed just like that. Such a destructive means is comparable to heaven's punishment. No wonder that guy misunderstood. Lin Xue looked at the vast expanse of flat land and could not help but sigh. Sir God Blood Illusion nodded and said regretfully, "It's a pity that young master controlled the thousands of swords to destroy everything. The wealth and cultivation resources that the Green Thunder Sect had accumulated for many years were also destroyed. There is not much left." Left emissary Jean thought of something and asked worriedly, "Young master, you destroyed the Green Thunder Sect's mountain gate to destroy their fighting spirit. However, the entire mountain gate was destroyed and no one was left alive. How did the news get out? How did the Green Thunder Sect master and the elite forces know that their mountain gate was gone?" Ji Tianqing said calmly, "No matter what method or means, the Green Thunder Sect master and the mountain gate are connected. He definitely knows that something happened to the sect. However, we need to add fuel to the fire. Old Jean, go to the nearest city with Blood Dragon and spread the news that the Green Thunder Sect's mountain gate was destroyed. It must be exaggerated and shocking enough. And insist that the Green Thunder Sect had met with heaven's punishment." Left emissary Jean was filled with emotions. "Young master, there is no need to exaggerate or embellish anything. We just need to tell the truth and it will scare countless people to death." Chapter 31-36. After destroying the gate of the Blue Thunder sect, Ji Tianqing and the others left quietly. An hour later, the group arrived at the nearest city. There were 5 cities and more than 30 towns in the Thunder Sound Mountain. As for Blue Thunder City, it was the most prosperous of all the cities and towns. It also had the largest population. Most importantly, the city was under the jurisdiction of the Blue Thunder sect. Many families of the disciples of the Blue Thunder sect lived in the city. The left emissary Jin, the right emissary of the Blood Dragon, and Zhenhong all disguised themselves and snuck into the Blue Thunder city. They spread the news of the destruction of the Blue Thunder sect's mountain gate in places where there were many people. The news caused an uproar among the crowd. Everyone's first reaction was to refuse to believe it. They refuted and even accused Zhenhong and the others of spreading rumors. However, they spoke with great confidence and vividly described the process and scene of the destruction of the Blue Thunder sect's main gate. Moreover, they insisted that it was Haotian's punishment. The Blue Thunder sect angered Haotian and was punished by heaven. They were destroyed in an instant. Hearing those words, the people in the city found it even more ridiculous. They cursed in indignation and whispered to each other. However, the people in the city didn't believe it. However, the news spread quickly in the Blue Thunder city. Many masters rushed to the Blue Thunder sect to verify the authenticity of the news. Zhenhong and the others left the Blue Thunder city quietly after achieving their goal. Then, Ji Tianqing and the others went south to their next target. What happened next was self-evident. More than 2 hours later, many experts returned to the Blue Thunder city. The reactions of these people were more or less the same. They were all filled with shock, and their faces were deathly pale. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Many people gathered around and asked what had happened. Those experts said the answer with fear in their hearts. What those people said is true. The gate of the Blue Thunder sect was destroyed. No, the Blue Thunder sect was not destroyed. It disappeared completely. There used to be a 2,000 Zhonghai mountain there. Now it's a flat land. That's horrible. Everything within a radius of 1,000 miles has become a flat land. That mountain and the Green Thunder sect have disappeared. This is the punishment of heaven. To the people in the city, this news was like a bolt from the blue. Everyone was stupefied. They were shocked to the extreme, and dense fear surged out from their hearts. If only 2 or 3 experts said this, many commoners would still feel lucky and unwilling to believe or accept this fact. However, everyone who went to check on the situation gave the same answer. This caused all the citizens in the city to no longer have any doubts. The Green Thunder sect was indeed gone. It was destroyed by the divine punishment. Soon, the city lord's mansion also received the exact news. The city lord went there in person. After checking the situation, he hurriedly sent a message to the master of the Blue Thunder sect to report the situation. Thousands of miles away from the Thunder Sound mountain range, a team of several hundred people was flying in the sky. The master of the Blue Thunder sect, more than 10 elders, dozens of deacons, and hundreds of disciples had drawn a battle line that was thousands of miles long in the sky. They flew south unhurriedly. They were waiting for half a month to close the encirclement and complete the task that Prince Lien had given them. At this moment, a message jade slip flew from the sky and landed in front of the master of the Blue Thunder sect. This person was a tall and burly middle-aged deity in a golden robe. There was a thunderbolt mark on his forehead. His aura was very majestic and overbearing. He reached out and grabbed the jade slip. His divine senses entered it and read the message inside. After 2 breaths, his face suddenly stiffened. His body shook violently and his eyes widened in horror. He froze in the sky as if he had been petrified. His expression became extremely horrified and incredulous. The sudden change made the elders realize something was wrong. They hurriedly gathered around and asked about the situation. Sect Master, what happened? Who sent the message? Could it be that the little prince has new instructions? Sect Master, what's wrong with you? Why do you look so pale? The elders asked one after another with concerned looks on their faces. The master of the Blue Thunder sect was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses. His lips trembled as he said, "Our sect's mountain gate is gone." It was only a few words, but it seemed that he had used up the last of his strength. His voice was trembling and hoarse. The elders were also stunned. Their faces changed color and they cried out in alarm. What? The mountain gate is gone. How is this possible? How could it be gone all of a sudden? What's going on? Did someone attack our sect? The master of the Blue Thunder sect roared with a pale face. News came from Blue Thunder City. Our sect and the holy mountain are gone. The surrounding thousands of miles have become flat ground. The deputy sect master and more than 2,000 disciples are all gone. Not even a corpse is left. The news in the city is that our sect angered Haotian and was punished by the heavens. After roaring, the master of the Blue Thunder sect was so angry that he could not bear it anymore. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Puff, the purplish-red blood sword flew far away. It was a shocking sight. The elders were all stunned, and the mighty procession also stopped. The news of the mountain gate being destroyed quickly spread among the crowd. Hundreds of disciples were stunned. There was a commotion in the crowd. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Everyone's expression was also mournful. All their fighting spirit had disappeared. The blow was so great that everyone was stunned. Many disciples wailed. Many deacons beat their chests and stamped their feet. The crowd was in chaos. The elders and the master of the Blue Thunder sect were the first to calm down. Someone roared, "What kind of heavenly punishment is this? I don't believe in such nonsense." Someone immediately echoed, "Yes. Our sect has always been law-abiding. How could we be punished by the heavens? The enemy must have attacked our sect. The people are stupid and ignorant. That's why they thought of the heavenly punishment." Sect Master, this is definitely not a heavenly punishment. It must be done by our enemy. The master of the Blue Thunder sect nodded in agreement. He frowned and analyzed, "Our sect has many enemies, but only a few of them. With the strength of those sects, it is impossible for them to break into our mountain gate and kill more than 2,000 people in one breath. They also made the sacred mountain disappear in an instant and flattened the land within 1,000 miles, it is definitely not done by those sects." The elders nodded and began to discuss and analyze. "Those sects know that we work for Prince Lien. They will not dare to attack us. But other than those sects, we don't have any other enemies." Suddenly, an elder's eyes flashed as he thought of a possibility. "Do you think it is possible that Tianqing did it? After all, that kid destroyed the Sacred Fire sect and the Surging Waves Palace in the God-burying mountain range. He is probably the only one who has such terrifying strength and means." Chapter 31-37. Everyone was stunned when they heard the name Tianqing. After a moment of silence, the faction master of the Green Thunder faction and the other elders finally spoke. Fifth Elder's analysis makes sense. Apart from the other factions, our most powerful enemy is Tianqing. Only that bastard would have such terrifying strength. We have no quarrel with him. How could he be so vicious to do such an outrageous thing? No. Although we haven't fought with him yet, we are working for the prince. We will join forces to kill him. That's right. We are working for the prince. That means we are his mortal enemies. That bastard is cunning and sinister. He must have known about the prince's plan. If he refuses to surrender, he will take the initiative to destroy all 8 of our factions. After the elders' analysis, everyone was even more certain that Ji Tianqing was the culprit behind this tragedy. Suddenly, the faction master of the Green Thunder faction added, "Don't forget that we have just received news that the main force of the Flying Cloud faction has been annihilated. Even that old bastard Nia Feiyan was killed by Tianqing. In conclusion, I think Tianqing is the culprit." The faction master of the Green Thunder faction concluded that the culprit was the culprit. The elders were furious. They gritted their teeth and started to curse. "Tianqing, that son of a bitch. Our faction will never forgive him. That son of a bitch destroyed our faction's foundation and killed more than 2,000 of our disciples. Such a blood feud, even if we were to be smashed to pieces, we would still repay it in double. That son of a bitch is too vicious. Not only did he destroy our faction, but he also spread the rumor that this is a punishment from heaven. He is trying to destroy our faction's reputation. Faction master, that bastard must still be around. Let's go back and fight him to the death." Seeing that the elders were filled with righteous indignation, it was as if they were ready to die. The faction master of the Green Thunder faction quickly advised, "Everyone, please calm down. Don't forget the prince's warning. He told us not to act rashly. If all 8 of our factions work together, we might be able to kill Tianqing. However, if any of our sects were to encounter him, we would only be slaughtered. If you all rush back to the sect now, if you really meet him, you will only be killed by him." The elders fell silent. A younger and hot-blooded elder roared with red eyes, "Then should we just pretend that nothing happened and not avenge our disciples?" The master of the Blue Thunder sect waved his hand and said in a dignified tone, "The tragedy has already happened. It's useless to be angry. Now, we have to consider clearly what we should do next. Continue the mission and join forces with the 7 major sects to kill Tianqing. Or should we retreat in the face of difficulties and rush back to Blue Thunder City to clean up the mess and stabilize the people's hearts?" The elders were silent. After a moment of deliberation, they gave their own opinions. "This old man believes that Tianqing destroyed our sect's mountain gate in order to intimidate and warn us. If we continue to participate in the mission, he will definitely kill us all. This isn't a threat or a warning, this is a declaration of war. After all, our sect is destroyed and we have no home to return to. Let's continue the mission and kill him in one go. Only in this way can we be rewarded by the young lord and avenge our dead disciples. No. The Blue Thunder City and the Thunderous Sound Mountain are our foundations. Now that the news has spread, the Thunderous Sound Mountain will definitely be in chaos. We can't abandon the foundation that we have built for thousands of years. We have to rush back to take charge of the situation and rebuild the sect. If we withdraw from the mission directly, we will offend the young lord. I suggest that you send a message to the young lord to report the situation and then return to the Thunderous Sound Mountain to clean up the mess. In this way, we can withdraw from the mission without offending the young lord." Obviously, the destruction of the sect's mountain gate had caused great panic among the elders. They were so scared of Ji Tianqing that they didn't dare to participate in the mission anymore. Among the elders, only 2 of them supported continuing the mission and vowed to kill Ji Tianqing. The others all wanted to withdraw. They advised the master of the Blue Thunder sect to withdraw from the mission and return to the Thunderous Sound Mountain to recuperate. Therefore, after careful consideration, the master of the Blue Thunder sect made a decision. "I will send a message to the young lord right now and tell him everything in detail. Then, we will return to the Thunderous Sound Mountain to clean up the mess and wait for any changes. I believe that Tianqing won't just target our sect. He will definitely attack other sects next." Since the master of the Blue Thunder sect had made the decision, the elders had no objections. They could only follow the order. In the royal city of Wrath. In the same golden palace, in the secret chamber filled with divine power. Prince Lien was still sitting in the pool of divine liquid. Surrounded by divine light, he was healing himself with his eyes closed. At this moment, the door of the secret chamber lit up and made some noises. Prince Lien frowned and stopped healing himself. He waved his hand and opened the door of the secret chamber. The Lien heir in golden armor entered the secret chamber quickly with his head lowered. He knelt down in front of the pool of divine liquid. Prince Lien's heart skipped a beat when he saw the embarrassed look on the Lien heir's face. He had a bad feeling. Lien heir, what happened? The Lien heir didn't dare to hide anything. He handed a jade slip to Prince Lien. Your Highness, the master of the Blue Thunder sect just sent an urgent message. He said that the Blue Thunder sect has been razed to the ground. What? Prince Lien's body stiffened, and his expression became very awkward. He quickly took the communication jade slip and read its contents with his divine sense. There was a lot of information in the jade slip, but he finished reading it quickly. Crack. Prince Lien's face twisted in anger. He crushed the jade slip. Punishment of Haotian. Punishment of Haotian. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. What a punishment of Haotian. Prince Lien was so angry that he started to laugh. He cursed in a gloomy voice, Tianqing is a bastard. Damn bastard. He was afraid of this king's inescapable net, so he actually used such a vicious scheme and did such a cruel and vicious thing. But it worked so well that the Blue Thunder sect was scared out of their wits. They want to quit the mission and go back to the Thunder Sound Mountain to clean up the mess. The Lien heir knelt on the ground. He was terrified. He said in a trembling voice, Your Highness, the Flying Cloud sect has been destroyed. If the Blue Thunder sect quit the mission, there will be a big gap in our encirclement. Moreover, with the strength of the 7 sects, they are not completely confident that they can kill Tianqing. Prince Lien nodded and said in a low voice, It's not that simple. If that bastard can attack the Blue Thunder sect, he can also attack the Flying Rainbow sect, the Overlord Pavilion, but the elites and main forces of the sects are all carrying out my mission. Their sects and headquarters are empty. If Tianqing destroys their headquarters one by one, those sects will panic and quit the mission one after another. With the major sects withdrawing from the operation one after another, this king's inescapable net will collapse on its own. Tianqing, that little be asterisk starred, is really vicious. Prince Lien was shaking with anger. His eyes were bloodshot and turned dark red. Chapter 31-38. Silver Moon Lake. This is a huge lake with a radius of 100,000 miles, located between the mountains. If overlooking from the sky, this lake is like a silver moon on the earth. The geographical location of this lake is superior, and the divine power is incomparably abundant. It is a rare cultivation treasure land. The Mystic Moon sect, which has been passed down for more than 8,000 years, is located in this lake. Moreover, what is surprising and admirable is that the headquarters of the Mystic Moon sect is actually at the bottom of the lake. It is a beautiful underwater palace located at the bottom of the water. At the bottom of the dark water, there is a colorful light shield with a radius of 100 miles, quietly standing at the bottom of the lake. Inside the colorful light shield is the headquarters of the Mystic Moon sect. Dozens of colorful, magnificent and solemn palaces are located among the reefs and corals. Inside the light shield, there are plazas, gardens, medicine fields, and forests. Such a scene is no different from the sects on the land. But outside the colorful light shield is the dark bottom of the water, where hundreds of millions of fish and shrimp swim in groups. There are also 9 winged dragon fish, which are thousands of feet long and have lived for tens of thousands of years, slowly swimming around the light shield. Those 9-winged dragon fish have the strength of the 5th or 6th level of the divine monarch realm, and are the guardian beasts of the Mystic Moon sect. Now, the main force and elites of the Mystic Moon sect are outside carrying out the mission of Prince Lien. Only the deputy sect leader of the Mystic Moon sect, several elders, more than 3,000 disciples, and tens of thousands of servants and odd job workers are left in the headquarters. Because of the special location of the Mystic Moon sect's headquarters, almost no one dares to come here and behave atrociously. In addition, after the Mystic Moon sect submitted to Prince Lien, its power has been rapidly strengthened, and no one dares to provoke it. Even if the headquarters' power is empty, many disciples are safe and sound, and there is no need to worry. Today, the disciples of the Mystic Moon sect are cultivating in seclusion as usual, living a peaceful life. All of a sudden, the shimmering dark lake was suddenly illuminated by a dazzling divine light. A total of 20,000 colorful giant swords poured down like a rain of arrows, covering the surface of the lake with a radius of 1,000 miles. Boom 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 boom. 10,000 swords entered the water, carrying the power to destroy the heavens and earth, and blasted toward the sect's protective array in underwater palace. The 9-winged dragonfish surrounding the sect protection formation felt a strong aura of death and were instantly frightened. They immediately sped up and charged towards the 10,000 giant swords without any regard for their own safety, unleashing all kinds of divine abilities and secret techniques to defend themselves. Boom boom boom. Tens of thousands of giant swords collided with the divine light that blotted out the sky, causing a deafening explosion. The abhijna that blotted out the sky was immediately shattered into pieces. The 9-winged dragon fish were also cut into pieces by the thousands of giant swords. A large amount of blood splashed into the lake, dyeing the area within a radius of 100 miles red. The corpses of the winged dragonfish were also scattered in all directions. Their godheads flew out and fled in all directions in a panic. Although they had protected the Mystic Moon sect for thousands of years, in the face of death, it was their nature to flee. Unfortunately, the area within a radius of 500 kilometers had been sealed off by tens of thousands of swords. It was impossible for them to escape. Caw caw caw. Following a series of crisp cracking sounds, the godheads of the 9-winged dragonfish were all shattered by the giant sword. Immediately after, 20,000 giant swords fell to the bottom of the lake and slammed into the sect protection formation. Another loud rumbling sound could be heard, spreading hundreds of miles under the lake. The multicolored sect protecting grand formation was shattered on the spot, and hundreds of millions of fragments flew out. The destructive shockwave created a huge wave that was hundreds of feet tall, causing chaos within a radius of 500 kilometers. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The heaven-destroying sword formation was immediately formed and sealed off the headquarters of the Mystic Moon sect. The sword formation was activated, and tens of thousands of swords flew back and forth, forming a dazzling sword net. The disciples of the Mystic Moon sect were suddenly awakened, and all of them fled in panic, screaming and yelling. However, the screams of countless disciples, servants were quickly drowned out by the earth-shattering sound. Boom boom boom. One after another, the magnificent palaces were shattered by the giant swords, turning into debris and ruins. Countless disciples and servants of the Mystic Moon sect were also shattered into pieces by the sword light and scattered at the bottom of the lake. The lake water in this area became extremely murky, filled with blood and debris. The sword formation continued to operate for 10 breaths of time. The earth-shattering sound also lasted for a long time before it dissipated. When the heaven-destroying sword formation was removed and the 20,000 giant swords dissipated, the area gradually returned to calm. The sect protection formation of 100 miles was gone. Dozens of palaces and houses also disappeared without a trace. The magnificent underwater castle had also been reduced to rubble. The headquarters of the Mystic Moon sect no longer existed. More than 10,000 people of the God clan were also killed on the spot, and not even a complete corpse was left. Not long after, Lin Shui, Gold-Left Emissary, Blood Dragon Right Emissary, and Zhen Hong appeared in the ruins. They were searching for spoils at the bottom of the lake and cleaning up the battlefield. Soon, Lin Shui found a treasure vault buried deep in the ground, located in the rock layer. Ji Tianxing used a little trick to break the sect protection formation of the treasure vault. Then, Lin Shui, Gold-Left Emissary, and the others entered the treasure vault and plundered the treasures. An hour later, they had seized more than 30 billion worth of resources. Only then did they leave in satisfaction. Not long after, the news of the Mystic Moon sect's headquarters being destroyed also spread quickly. Experts and powerhouses from all directions went to the Silver Moon Lake to check the situation. The news of the Mystic Moon sect's destruction was confirmed and set off another shocking storm, making billions of God clan members tremble in fear. 5 days later, another explosive news came from Tianyi County's Flying Rainbow City. 100,000 miles away from Flying Rainbow City, the Flying Rainbow sect located on the Dragon Vein treasure land was also destroyed in an instant. The Flying Rainbow sect was located in the Sea of Clouds, above the abyss between two 10,000 feet high peaks. It had always been a sacred and ethereal cultivation ground. But when countless experts heard the news and rushed over, they found that the Flying Rainbow sect had disappeared. Even the two 10,000 feet high peaks and hundreds of miles of Sea of Clouds no longer existed. According to the news circulating in the city, the Flying Rainbow sect's outcome was the same as the Blue Thunder sect, also suffering the wrath of heaven. Great Heaven sent down 10,000 divine giant swords, destroying everything in the blink of an eye, killing all living things. This news caused another huge uproar in Tianyi County, causing countless God clan members to panic. As the saying went, before one wave subsided, another wave arose. Another 7 days later, the Overlord Pavilion located in the Three Dragons County was also punished by Great Heaven. Under the bombardment of 10,000 swords, they disappeared without a trace, leaving no survivors. The process and scene of the Overlord Pavilion's destruction was exactly the same as the Flying Rainbow sect and the Blue Thunder sect. When the news spread throughout the God Nation, countless people and experts felt that something was wrong. How was this some kind of heavenly punishment? It was clear that there was an incomparably powerful deity enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens, eradicating evil. At the same time, Prince Lian, who was still recuperating in the Raging Flame Royal City, was so angry that he vomited blood again when he heard the news of the major sects being destroyed. Because the result was just as he expected. The major sects that had been destroyed all lost their fighting spirit and expressed that they would withdraw from the operation. Chapter 31-39. Bastard! That damned beast! Even if I cut him into 1,000 pieces, it would not be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. In the Raging Flame Royal City, Prince Lian angrily roared in the secret chamber of the palace. He stood in the middle of the divine liquid pool, his whole body burning with blood-red flames. The pool water was boiling and evaporating, creating a vast mist. On the ground 1 zhang away from him was a pile of broken jade slips. On the ground 2 zhang away, the Lian heir was kneeling on one knee with his head buried deep, trembling with fear. Just a moment ago, the Lian heir had sent a message from the Overlord Pavilion's master. In the message, the Overlord Pavilion's master said that the headquarters had been destroyed and more than 2,000 disciples had been killed, which was a devastating blow to the Overlord Pavilion. Now, the Overlord Pavilion's master and more than 400 of his elites had lost their fighting spirit and fighting spirit. In desperation, the Overlord Pavilion could only temporarily withdraw from the operation and return to the headquarters to clean up the mess and recuperate. Prince Lien's mission was indeed important, but the headquarters of the Overlord Pavilion had been operating for more than 10,000 years could not be lost. Although the Overlord Pavilion's master had tactfully proposed his idea and repeatedly apologized to Prince Lien, the truth was right in front of him. No matter how tactful he was, it was useless. Prince Lien was so angry that his whole body trembled and he almost vomited blood. There was no other way. This was already the 5th time he had received such news. A total of 5 sects had been attacked by Ji Tianqing, and their headquarters and gates had been destroyed. The result was the same. The 5 sects were scared out of their wits and did not dare to participate in the encirclement mission. They hurriedly rushed back to the headquarters to clean up the mess. This was because the headquarters had many disciples' families and many emotional ties. Moreover, each sect understood that this was a threat and warning from Tianqing. If they continued to participate in the mission, the next time it would not be the old and weak from the headquarters that would be slaughtered, but their elites. If Ji Tianqing could sneak attack the headquarters of each sect, then he could also intercept and kill the main force of each sect. In other words, the life and death of each sect was in the hands of Ji Tianqing. The headquarters and gates of the 5 sects have been destroyed by that bastard. Right now, only the Spirit Sword sect, the Divine Saber Union, and the 10,000 Streams sect have not been attacked. 5 sects have withdrawn from the operation, leaving only the 3 sections. Can they still encircle that bastard Tianqing? Grand Prince Lien roared in a hoarse voice. His entire body was filled with fierce flames, and his eyes were dark red. At this time, the Lien heir said with a trembling voice, "Your Highness, just now, the sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect also sent a message." When Prince Lien heard this, he immediately grinned coldly and said, "What? The Spirit Sword sect hasn't been attacked by that beast yet, are they going to withdraw from the operation?" The Lien heir lowered his head even more and said in a trembling voice, "Your Highness, please understand. Although the Spirit Sword sect has not been attacked, the headquarters of the other 5 sects have been destroyed. From Tianqing's action plan, the next target was the Spirit Sword sect, the 10,000 Flow sect, and the Divine Blade Union. Therefore, the sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect has expressed his intention to lead the elites back to the headquarters to guard against Tianqing's attack. The sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect has said that if Tianqing really attacks the headquarters of the Spirit Sword sect, he will destroy both the jade and the common stone. Even if he has to sacrifice everyone in the Spirit Sword sect, including himself, he will do his utmost to kill Tianqing, so as to not disappoint your highness." Ha ha ha. Grand Prince Lien immediately laughed and sneered contemptuously. These bastards, do they really think that this king is confused by anger? Isn't he just greedy for life and afraid of death, wanting to preserve the foundation of the Spirit Sword sect? Why do they have to make it sound so dignified? If Tianqing really attacks the Spirit Sword sect, why would he fight to the death? I'm afraid he would run faster than anyone else. The Lien heir remained silent, not daring to answer. Grand Prince Lien sneered for a while, then waved his hand dispiritedly. Forget it, forget it. The 5 sects have already withdrawn, and the Spirit Sword sect also wants to escape. This king's inescapable dragnet plan has already failed. Even if I order the Spirit Sword sect to stay, what's the point? On the contrary, this king will end up with a reputation of being harsh and ungrateful, not caring about the life and death of my subordinates. If the Spirit Sword sect wants to be a coward, then let them be. The Lien heir immediately kowtowed and said with a sonorous voice, "Your Highness is wise. This subordinate will pass the message that the Spirit Sword sect is allowed to temporarily withdraw from the operation." With that, the Lien heir bowed and prepared to leave the secret room. However, at this moment, a flash of light flew out from the passage and landed in front of the Lien heir. The Lien heir grabbed the jade slip and quickly used his divine sense to examine it. Suddenly, his complexion changed, revealing a deeply aghast expression. Seeing his reaction, Grand Prince Lien immediately frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" The Lien heir swallowed hard and said with a trembling voice, "Reporting to your highness. The sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect just sent a message. Just now, the headquarters of the Spirit Sword sect was attacked. The vice-sect leader, several elders, many deacons, and more than 2,000 disciples were all turned into ashes. Even the main gate of the Spirit Sword sect was razed to the ground, turning into ruins in the blink of an eye. The process of Tianqing attacking the Spirit Sword sect was no different from before, it was still bombarded by 10,000 swords. Moreover, the news and rumors that Tianqing released were the same as before, saying that the Spirit Sword sect was also punished by the heavens. Grand Prince Lien suddenly became silent, his body stiffened and stood in a daze. After a long time, he gradually came back to his senses. With a mocking sneer, he said, "Ha ha ha ha. Aren't those bastards of the Spirit Sword sect greedy for life and afraid of death?" But it turns out that they were still one step too late. Even if this king had just approved and allowed them to return to their sect, they still couldn't avoid the disaster of their sect being exterminated. The Lien heir could only remain silent, not daring to express any opinion. Grand Prince Lien pondered for a moment, and then suddenly thought of something. With a dignified tone, he said, "Lien heir, I want you to draft a decree and convey this king's decree to the 5 great sects and the Spirit Sword sect. In any case, their sects have been destroyed, their foundation and wealth no longer exist. It can be said that they have nothing left. Since this is the case, they and Tianqing are irreconcilable enemies, so they should unite against a common enemy. We have to work together to kill that bastard Tianqing. That's the only way we can get our revenge. Tell the people of the 6 great sects that if they immediately respond to this king's order, then everything will be forgotten. But if they dare to delay, then don't blame this king for pacifying the internal situation first." The Lien heir understood what he meant. He quickly complied and then left the secret room to send out the message. The secret room was restored to silence. Grand Prince Lien's complexion became malicious, and his eyes revealed a resentful light. "Damn little bastard, do you think you can still stir up a storm in the raging flame divine country? As the saying goes, an army filled with righteous indignation is bound to win. The elites and main forces of the 8 great sects will definitely fight you to the last drop of blood. However, how could that little bastard know the locations of the sects so clearly? That Nye Feiyun, is he dead or not? Could it be that he betrayed us and surrendered, and became Tianqing's spy?" Chapter 3140. The moon was dark and the wind was howling. In the falling Sword Mountain range of the Cambrian county, a group of more than 400 people majestically flew across the sky. After a short while, this majestic group stopped in the air above a plain. The crowd was very quiet. Everyone looked solemn, sorrowful, and dignified. Everyone looked at the plain in the night, their expression was full of grief, indignation, and hatred. This was because this 800-mile-wide plain was originally a stretch of towering mountain peaks and valleys. On top of the 2,000-feet-high mountain, there were countless palaces and buildings. That was where the Spirit Sword sect was located. But now, everything was wiped out. The mountain and the ravine no longer existed. More than 2,000 disciples also turned into ashes, not even a whole corpse was left. The sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect rushed back with more than 400 elders, deacons, and elite disciples, only to see such a miserable scene. How could they not be angry and desperate? A heavy and solemn atmosphere pervaded the crowd. In the hearts of more than 400 people, there was a thick resentment and killing intent accumulated. At this time, the sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect loudly said, "It took 8,000 years for our sect to develop to its current scale. But now, that beast Tianqing is so cruel and vicious that he actually destroyed our sect's foundation and slaughtered more than 2,000 disciples. Such a blood feud is absolutely irreconcilable in this life." The more than 400 elite disciples all loudly shouted, "Absolutely irreconcilable. Absolutely irreconcilable." The sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect raised his hand and pressed it down, signaling the crowd to be quiet. He then said in a heavy tone, "However, we must remember this enmity in our hearts. For the time being, we cannot retaliate. The top priority is to immediately rush to the Eternal Night City, where half of our sect's foundation and painstaking efforts are." The ordinary disciples didn't quite understand the meaning of this sentence, but many of the elders and deacons understood the meaning of the sect leader. Many years ago, the sect leader had prepared for a rainy day and made a plan in advance. On the surface, the Spirit Sword sect only had this one headquarters. But in fact, the Spirit Sword sect had built a treasure house in the Eternal Night City, which stored a massive amount of cultivation resources and treasures. The so-called eggs cannot be put in one basket. The sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect had long understood this truth. He also had reason to believe that although Ji Tianqing could destroy the Spirit Sword sect, it was impossible for him to know the location of the treasure house. So what if more than 2,000 disciples died? As long as that treasury still exists, our sect still has a chance to rise again. This was the inner thought of the Spirit Sword sect's sect leader. Soon, he left the battlefield ruins with more than 400 elders, deacons, and elite disciples, and rushed to Everlasting Night City as fast as lightning. After continuously rushing for 4 hours, everyone finally arrived at Eternal Night City. This ancient city with thousands of years of history was still brightly lit even in the middle of the night. In the entire Cambrian County, Ever Night City was one of the top few cities with a large population. However, the treasure house of the Spirit Sword sect was not in the city. Instead, it was 1,000 miles south of the city, in an inconspicuous, dilapidated villa. The dilapidated villa was located in the middle of the mountains. The villa occupied an area of more than 10 miles, and there was no sign of human habitation on normal days. However, in the dark, there were hundreds of elite experts lying in ambush all over the villa, guarding the safety of the treasure house day and night. As for the treasure house, of course, it was under the ground of the villa, in the belly of the mountain. The treasure house was protected by a powerful divine array, which not only concealed its divine power, but also made it difficult to be discovered. Whoosh! Whoosh! A dazzling divine light flashed, and the more than 400 people of the Spirit Sword sect arrived in the sky above the villa. In the past, the people in the villa should have been alarmed. Immediately, a guard flew out, saluted the sect leader and the others, and reported the defense situation. However, tonight, the villa was dead silent. Not only no guard appeared, but there was also no sound. Such a strange scene caused the sect leader and several elders of the Spirit Sword sect to frown with vigilance. After hesitating for a moment, several elders began to discuss. Sect leader, this old man feels that something is wrong with this villa. According to the past practice, the guard captain and the housekeeper have already found out that we are coming, so they must come out to greet us. Sect leader, the villa looks so strange. Should we investigate the situation first? I have a bad premonition that this villa has been occupied. What? How could that kid know about this place? Damn it! In this villa, half of our sect's life's work is buried. The great defensive array of the villa seems to have been tampered with. We can't even detect the situation in the villa. No matter what the truth is, everyone should be careful. The sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect quickly made up his mind. He took out his divine weapons and quietly landed in the mountain villa with more than 400 elites. Before the crowd could shout, there was no time to release their divine sense to investigate the situation in the villa. Suddenly, a 20 miles wide 5-colored divine array appeared out of thin air in the night sky. Whoosh! The 5-colored light cover shrouded the entire villa, emitting a dazzling brilliance. The more than 400 people of the Spirit Sword sect were all blocked by the 5-colored light cover, so they had no way to retreat. At this time, the 5-colored light cover suddenly condensed into thousands of giant swords. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Thousands of giant divine swords immediately shot out like a rain of arrows, producing a sharp and ear-piercing sound. Facing this sudden change, the sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect immediately realized that something was wrong. He shouted himself hoarse, "We have been ambushed. Everyone, defend with all your strength, don't panic." The more than 400 disciples were indeed elites. No matter how panicked they were, they could still remain calm. Everyone quickly formed a battle array and went all out to resist the bombardment of the sword rain. Boom 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 boom. Bang 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 bang. The sky-covering divine light and shadow collided with the giant swords, producing a deafening sound. Countless divine light and shadow collapsed, but the thousands of giant swords were unscathed. Moreover, their power was still strong. They formed a hurricane in the villa, unscrupulously sweeping across the area. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In the blink of an eye, wherever the storm of swords passed, all the palaces and houses were twisted into slag, turning into ruins. The palaces and houses protected by the divine array still ended up like this. The fate of the more than 400 disciples of the Spirit Sword sect was self-evident. Sword light burst out in the field, the divine light was dazzling, and screams were heard everywhere. Countless arrows of blood, broken limbs, and minced meat fiercely burst out. In just a few breaths, more than 100 disciples of the Spirit Sword sect died under the thousands of swords. But this was just the beginning. With the passage of time, the number of disciples of the Spirit Sword sect continued to decrease. The sect leader and several elders of the Spirit Sword sect also tried their best to hold on. Their bodies were covered with wounds and stained with blood. This was not a confrontation between two armies, but a one-sided massacre. The disciples of the Spirit Sword sect didn't even see who the enemy was before they were strangled into a mess. The fastest mobile version of the website, you're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.